Hi everyone, welcome to this episode. It's a special midweek episode, and the topic is perhaps something you will not have heard about before. And I want to start with a little bit of a story. Imagine there is a forest and there are three people in it. One is a Christian, one is a Muslim, one is a Hindu. और फिर वहाँ पे झाड़ियों में थोड़ी हलचल होती है और झाड़ियों के अंदर से बाहर आता है एथिज्म. The Christian looks at it and says, "Oh no, existential threat." The Muslim says, "Oh no, existential threat." And the Hindu looks at it and says, "ये मस्त है, इसको उठा लेते हैं." So that is what we are going to talk about, and the animal that we are going to talk about, the beast that we are going to talk about, is Hindu atheism. And with me to talk about it is someone many of you may be familiar with because his channel is extremely popular, at least in the subcontinent. His name is Haris Sultan, and he runs a channel called Pakistani Mulhid. He has had experiences doing this for a much longer time than I do, and so I think we will all benefit from his experience. So here he is on screen. Hi, Haris.
Hi, how are you?
It's great to have you here.
Thank you. No, I'm so happy. I love your analogies. I love your stories, the way you put it in, and I'm a big fan on Instagram. I saw that a while ago, and I was like, this eloquence is so useful because people
Thank
like
you.
to connect with stories. People want to see the. If you go too deep into philosophical terms, then people kind of get disconnected and
Yeah,
uninterested. So I really love it. Well, thank you very much for having me.
that's kind of why religion works, doesn't it? Because they rely on
Exactly.
storytelling. And
Yes,
no matter how
exactly.
many facts you throw at people, if it does not connect on a story level, it doesn't make much sense.
Exactly.
So we have only ever spoken on Instagram. This is the first actual conversation we are having, by the way. So for anyone
Yes.
who's for people who have been like, I announced that I'm going to be live with you to talk about this stuff, and the people asked me, "How did you get in touch with him?" Because apparently a lot of people land up on your live stream and add themselves to the queue, and then never get to say anything because the queue is always full. I know because I've tried a couple of times.
With me?
Yeah, on your channel, like I go and try to get on the thing, but it's always full.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. No, but no, I actually, that's strange because I didn't know about that because I mean, I've been following your content because other people have been sending it to me because, by the way, like I do run another channel as well by my name, Hara Sultan, and that's obviously that one is in English. That's catered
Okay.
for the English audience. But a lot of people from all walks of life and all cultural because with the Urdu Hindi one, of course, a lot of
Yeah.
Indians and a lot of Pakistanis are going to watch that, and because India is a much bigger country and they're interested in Islam, learning about Islam, and from that point of view, so I get a lot of Indians, and then we have managed to, I wouldn't say I have managed, but I'm saying that by popularizing the ideas of atheism, we have managed to attract a lot of rich atheists coming from Hindu backgrounds. And then, as you mentioned, that we're going to talk about Hindu atheists, which was a big question mark for me. Is
Yeah.
like, if you are an atheist, how can you adopt an an identifier which is solely hijacked by religion? I get the other cultural
Hmm.
elements of it. I mean, I could also say I'm a Muslim atheist. In fact, one of my friend Ali Rizvi's book is titled Muslim Atheist because
Okay.
he argues that yes, I mean, I can have Eid, I can have pakoras on Ramzan, and I can do all of those things. So does that make me a Muslim per se? Not necessarily, because prime, yes, Eids and Ramadan and all these things, the cultural aspects, they are secondary and tertiaries issues. But the first and foremost requirement is to be a believer in God. But that's where we differentiate, because a lot of Hindu atheists come to me and they tell me that, like in Hinduism, atheism is compatible. I say, well, fair enough. But in atheism, Hinduism is not compatible because
That's true. I
because we
think,
can't. Yeah.
yeah. So I think a huge part of the problem is that in Islam, it is necessary to believe in the existence of God, and Hindus sometimes get away by claiming that they don't have to believe in God. But what they actually mean is that they don't have to believe in a personal God, a God
Mm.
with a name, a nature, and all that.
Who
But
listens
they
to
still
prayers and
believe.
everything. Yeah.
Exactly. So they still believe in a lot of things which are supernatural and kind of sort of maybe labeled with the same word, right? So karma is a thing, and
Punya
reincarnation is a
Jalam.
thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're assigning moral qualities to a universe that shows no evidence of possessing these qualities. So that's the issue.
I think this is what people don't understand, that when, because a lot of Hindu atheists get upset with people like us who are 100% materialistic atheists, who is
Yeah,
science based and reason based, and we need to have a strong rationale behind whatever that is. So being an atheist in this day and age is a way of thinking where an atheist is most likely going to be, for example, a vaccine believer, that vaccines work, because it's a way of thinking that we're
yeah,
not going to believe in something that is not supported by evidence. So, as you said, a lot of Hindu atheists. When you scratch the surface, when you investigate a little bit more, then they say, yeah, well, karma is a good thing. How does that hurt you? Or
yeah.
cow urine is has got medicinal qualities. What problem do you have with it? So I'm like, so is that what you want to call? You want to call yourself an atheist, and then you want to tell me that astrology is a fact, reincarnation is a fact, and then they throw that guy at the University of Massachusetts or something, the psychologist who wrote a book, and I was like, yeah, look, I'm sorry that kind of atheism. If you say that kind of atheism might be compatible with Nastika and Astic versus Nastic in the Hindu frame of mind, but atheism, what we're talking about, is not compatible with those views.
So I think this is something even I'm guilty of, or at least I was when I was a theist. I used to define the word atheist as like the word atheist itself actually has a very simple meaning:
Mm.
someone who lacks belief in God.
Yeah.
So if you limit the word's meaning to that alone, then it becomes to apply an adjective to it. I'm a atheist from Burma. I'm an atheist from Sri Lanka. I'm a Martian atheist. Whatever you want. The only quality necessary is that you don't believe in God. But since atheist has become a cultural movement in recent times, the definition has widened to include a lot of other things.
Mm.
So when I'm having a philosophical conversation about atheism with someone, I do say that it is one word with one meaning. But when the discussion goes into, like cow urine, for example, it is on one level a silly way of explaining a fact about nature, and on another level it is very deeply political also, which
Mm.
which actually wants kind of brings me to my next point, which is that you are someone, like, an American atheist will be criticizing Christianity, an Indian atheist might be criticizing Hinduism, you are a Pakistani atheist, your criticism of religion often takes the form of criticizing Islam.
Yeah.
And you get people who ask you, why are you only talking about Islam? Why not Hinduism and Christianity? An American atheist gets asked, why are you only criticizing Christianity? Why not Hinduism and Islam?
Islam.
And I get
Yeah.
asked, मुसलमानों को कुछ क्यों नहीं बोलते, खाली हिंदुइज्म को क्यों बोलते हो? And these people lack perspective because they are not looking at the bigger picture. And you are, and I am, and other people are. So how do you get around the problem of, like, I have talked about power structures before, which is that if I criticize a minority religion, the argument that I am presenting may be used against persecuted people. So I'm sure your channel gets a lot of people from India who like to call themselves Hindu atheists and who are only there to clap as you make fun of Islam. Just
Yeah.
as I get, and I watched a few clips from your videos also where you were talking about, maybe you fell into the trap of thinking that these people were genuine, but they were not. So if you could expand a little bit on that.
Well, initially that was a problem, but because of that kind of mentality, I mean, I recently made a post of Ramdev thing, posted a meme where he's like, yeah, well done, you're speaking against Islam, but then the moment you mention
Yeah, yeah, I saw that.
Hinduism, then it flies off into space,
Yeah.
like something's put under his backside. So, I, initially, very, very initially, I had this problem, but if you actually look into it, I started talking about, because a, a big part of my audience comes from India.
Hmm.
We even devised a name for it. Some people are not happy about it, like the Tunni ones. We
Yeah.
created that term purely, and we call, don't worry, we don't discriminate. We call Sunnah Tunnis as well. So, like the Muslims Sunni, so they're Sunnah, they follow Sunnah. So we call Mominines, and we call all of those words, but we got to keep a balance. So I guess that's your question. That how do you navigate through it? So I was forced to talk about Hinduism. I mean, I spoke with Kushal for a very long time what this Hindu atheism is. For the life of me, I could never
Kushal
understand that.
from the Charvak podcast.
Yes, so
Okay.
he is a materialistic hardcore atheist, but he refuses purely for I would say purely for emotional reasons. He refuses to drop the title of Hindu with it.
Hmm.
So, but he's very different. I must admit that he says that he's a Hindu atheist, but I must admit he's very different from the kind of Hindu atheist that I run into. For example, like this astrology and karma and all of these things that they believe in. So I have a playlist on my old channel and my new channel. I think I've got probably over 300 videos on. These are not specific videos in per se, but they're like, because of my weekly streams, I talk about certain topics. So those topics are categorized later on. So I've got those. I would say probably over 300 videos where I'm talking about Hinduism and I'm
Yeah, I
criticizing
saw
certain
those.
elements of Hinduism. So I think I do that, and now I haven't heard the Hindu atheist title for a while. Maybe because they backed off. They're like, okay, this guy is not our cup of tea, which is fine. I don't mind that. My allegiance is not to any particular group of people. I have a very narrow band of, if you want to call it an agenda, that I want to promote reason, rationality, and science, scientific values, moral values that are constantly evolving, and we're not looking into people from the 1400 years ago or 2000 years ago or even 5000 years ago. Some people say, I don't believe in that kind of morality. I don't believe in any absolute morality or anything that is supposedly absolute, because every time when someone promises you an absolute world, they promise you a utopia, and that has never ended well for humanity. So no, I think I've managed them all right. I mean, I don't get them anymore.
Okay, okay. But you do get another thing that you spoke about in one of your recent videos was Indian ex-Muslims,
Yeah.
and there is apparently some amount of trickery going on there. Would you like to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I have always believed that a good activist is someone who can inspire other activists. So this was a new experience for us as well, because initially I started, then Ghalib started, who
Hmm.
happens to be a Christian, but he's very educated on Islam. I would say he's more educated on Islam than 99% of the Muslim population. He knows, he's read the Hadith, he's read the whole Quran back to front,
Hmm.
he's read various so he's also an honorary ex-Muslim from my point of view. I have given him the title that you're an ex-Muslim. So initially it was us two speaking in Urdu and Hindi. Then we looked at, okay, we got a lot of attention from India, but then we were only getting attention from hardcore Hindu
Yeah.
radicals or Hindu
Yeah.
nationalists, as opposed to people like you or people like Dhruv Rathi or people like Deshbhakt, for example. Those guys are liberal left.
Dhruv Rathi, by the way, Dhruv Rathi does call himself a Hindu atheist. I'm not sure how deep his commitment to that label
He's
goes, but he
probably
does.
not. He's
Okay.
probably not, because he's not a Hindu nationalist. I mean, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
as I said, if you want to just use that for whatever reason, for whatever political, I've got no problem with that. But if I'm sure when we speak to these people, we understand where they stand. I mean, labels are irrelevant at the end of the day, unless what they matter in the real political world. Because if you ask certain Hindu atheists, astrology leads to certain irrational beliefs, and those
Hmm.
beliefs translate into political views. So what we see, the problem in India at this moment, we see this big divide between Hindu versus Islam, actually Hindus versus Muslims, and
Yeah.
that is going somewhere. I mean, I fear that this is, we see these videos every day now that come out where some Muslim is being beaten up, where a couple is being separated on the claim of love jihad or whatever, and then people are paying the price.
Yeah.
So those political points matter. So that's what matters to me. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't care if you want to call yourself a Hindu atheist. I really don't care. At the end of the day, how is it impacting your society, and how
Exactly.
is it affecting the world around you? So initially I wasn't getting. So I noticed that I was getting attention from these Hindu nationalists, and then and then we showed our colors that, sorry, we don't buy your argument, we don't buy your Astika, Nastika, and all, Advaita, and all. We don't buy that unless it's supported by evidence. I'm not going to say the yoga cures cancer.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that astrology, the Mars's position, is going to impact my life. I'm not going to say that, next life I'm going to turn into a spider or whatever. I'm not going to buy that. So then they realize, hang on a second, we can't rely on these guys. So then we started saying, which was inevitable. I'm not saying it's a conspiracy. I'm not saying it was a planned conspiracy because we don't know that. Then we saw some ex-Muslims from India started coming up. Okay. And I supported some of them at the start.
Okay.
So they started coming to surface, and then they did well. But then all of a sudden, I noticed that they were doing what I was falling victim to initially, where I was getting all the attention from Hindu nationalists. So they got, because they were local indigenous ex-Muslims. So if you go to their channels, most of these people are Hindu nationalists. So are you teaching Islam to Hindu nationalists? Shouldn't your goal be to educate Muslims that, hey, look, this is what's written in your book? There's sex slavery, there's wife beating, there's all kinds of ridiculous things in your books. Don't you want to be teaching Muslims and lifting them up? That has always been my goal. That has always been
Yeah.
our goal. So we've been quite clear on that. Yes, sometimes we seem a bit hawkish, but that has always been my commitment. So Indian ex-Muslims unfortunately lost their way, a lot of them, and they fell in the trap of playing in the hands of Hindu nationalists. One thing that you can see, and they've been embarrassed, a couple of them have been embarrassed with the wider international ex-Muslim community. Like the biggest
Yeah. Yeah.
ex-Muslim
Yeah.
is Apostate Prophet, for
I've
example,
seen some. Yes.
and secular jihadists. One of these guys went there and they probed him. What are your
Yeah.
views on
What are your
Muslim bigotry?
qualifications? Yeah.
Well, yeah, with that's that that was just almost comical. But secular jihadists, for example, they pushed him. What are your views on Muslim bigotry? Do you support that? Do you recognize that there is anti-Muslim bigotry where Muslims can be killed for eating beef, and this guy is totally silent? I mean, how
Hmm.
long? I mean, can't you say that yes, no man should be killed
Yeah.
over eating beef? So they
I think,
couldn't
by the
say it
way,
because. So sorry, yeah,
that's
I'll just wrap it up. Your point. So
no,
so
no.
so I think that's where they lost the plot.
No, I was just building on top of what you said. That's actually a great filter because you will always find, like, sometimes I will get a person who will, on Instagram, this used to happen because this channel is new, but I've been doing conversations about religion and atheism on Instagram also for some time. But I will occasionally find someone who's extremely enthusiastic about criticizing Islam.
Mm,
So the conversation that I want to have with that person is that, okay, my goal is to help people examine their own beliefs, because it's always extremely easy to point at someone else and say, ha ha, tum गाय का मूत पीते हो, or ha ha, तुम्हारा prophet कुछ तो था. But if you are enthusiastic about criticizing a religion, I will ask you your religion and then ask you
mm.
your views about the problems in it. If the person hesitates, then they are kind of caught up in that vicious cycle that you were talking about, who fall into the trap of catering to a large number of people. And I'm afraid that's a thing that like there are a lot of people in India, so no matter what we do, it becomes world's largest. And therefore, if we want to have anyone you know do the things we need them to do, uh, views are a thing that we can promise. Like, that's why there are reaction channels reacting to
Mm.
Bollywood movie trailers. They make one, they find that a lot of Indians are watching it, and they keep making them, and their channels become huge. I'm not saying all of them are bad people. I'm saying it's a business opportunity. The large number of eyeballs that are in India, a lot of people learn to cater to it.
Yeah, well, what's the saying? Charity begins at home.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's easy, as you said, it's easy to point out the problems with, for example, we've seen that in there's mild propaganda against Hinduism in Pakistan. Yeah, they worship these guys. And I mean, I remember in our textbook, there was a thing said that Prophet Muhammad asked the polytheists that you make these idols with your own hands. How can they support Allah? So we kids used to wonder, yeah, but then there was always a question at the back of the mind. At least they create this God. But we didn't know that this is a manifestation. We didn't know because we watched Bollywood. Every Pakistani at least in my generation, watched Bollywood movies.
Yeah.
Amitabh Bachchan rings the bell and says, "Meri maa ko bachalo," that kind of thing. So, but we,
भगवान
we
मैंने
didn't
आज तक
understand.
कुछ नहीं मांगा.
Yeah, man, Bhagwan Mehta exactly. So we all watched that, but then comes the punchline. that God, Allah, is unseen. So that, but then I always used to think that. But hang on, but we're also, how are we different? We're not. We can't even see our God that we're believing in that. But anyway, so those kind of feelings are suppressed, and people don't understand that. But yeah, look, I mean, charity begins at home. I think this is the ultimate test when it comes to, for example, nationalism. Everyone sees that there's a problem with someone else's country,
Yep.
unless you have the ability to see self. I mean, I see problems in every country, but as a Pakistani, I would always analyze what's wrong with Pakistan, and I would see 1,000 different. Isn't that amazing? You would also notice this, and tell me if I'm wrong. That when it comes to domestic policies, every Indian would find thousands of problems with the domestic structure. The police is corrupt, the lineman, the electrician is corrupt, the local politician, home minister, everything is corrupt. But when
Yeah.
it comes to international politics, our country is always right. We have a good
Ah.
stance on this. We have a good stance against China. We have a good stance against America and Pakistan. Everyone thinks that at that point, suddenly they become the best of the world. So
I think
that
it's a
tells you,
subcontinental problem, right? Like
no,
हमारे
it's
यहाँ पे
everywhere. Yeah, probably. Yeah. Yeah, sorry.
सबकॉन्टिनेंटल एज़ इन हमारे ईस्टर्न कंट्रीज़ का कि घर पे 50 झगड़े हों, पर बाहर वालों को पता नहीं लगना चाहिए। आई थिंक दैट
Yeah.
इज़ व्हाट हैज़ सीप्ड इंटू आवर पॉलिटिक्स। आई हैव रिटन अबाउट दिस अ लिटिल बिट आल्सो। बट दिस होल थिंग अबाउट you're making bad policies, people are protesting on the roads, but if the international media covers it, then that's a no no. Nobody should find out what is happening in our own country, so you should never write anything bad about our own country. That sort of attitude, I think, it's common to India, Pakistan, China, maybe even, because
China, yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's it's something. China तो मतलब extreme हो गया, घर के दरवाजे लॉक कर लिए उन्होंने, कोई बाहर ही नहीं जा सकता, बताएगा क्या?
But there is a rigorous debate going on that is too much freedom of speech really good for you? Because when we see in America, for example, in the Western world, we see the self criticism has gone way out of whack. Where when the states are not even in the wrong, it gives rise to people to criticize the government just for the sake of it. For example, in the COVID lockdown situation, yeah.
There was an article called "Free Speech Has Failed Us." I'm not sure where I read it, but it was kind of on the lines that when we deify free speech, when we say that everyone being able to say whatever they want is a good thing for everyone,
Mm.
we forgot to take into account, like, the world has actually changed very radically in the
Social
last couple
media,
of
yeah,
decades. Yeah,
yeah.
social media, internet, and we were not counting, we were not factoring all this into our conversations about free speech. We thought that certain elevated intelligent people will have access to gigantic platforms, and
Exactly.
now every idiot does, including us, by the way.
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah. That's
so
true.
and if an extremely powerful weapon is in the hands of everyone, regardless of whether they are qualified or not, then that's what happens. But sorry for
Yeah.
interrupting. Go on.
No, no, you hit the nail on the head, and that's exactly the point. That throughout this modern free speech world that we've had in the last 100 years or so, you have to get a degree to become a journalist, right? And then you get a job at New York Times or Guardian or whatever. So you do journalistic work. You do like any other profession. You do it. But now you and I can be journalists,
Yeah,
and you and I can get huge audiences purely because of what if we are appealing to. I was just looking into it. There's a channel. There's so many channels like that in Pakistan, for example, YouTube channels, millions of subscribers. Hakikat TV. There's another guy, and the level. Yes, it's bad in the West as well, but the level is so much worse in our countries that it just boggles your mind. For example, there's 2 million people. They're literally, this China created a sun kind of thing, and then there's a fake video where there's a
yeah,
rocket is going up and they replace it with the sun.
yeah,
These guys with million plus subscribers, they're they're showing that as a fact. This fake video. I don't know if they're doing this on purpose or they're just dumb idiots. And they're saying China's done this. This is a preparation. As per the Hadith, the sun is going to rise from the west. Maybe Allah was talking about this one. And you look at the comments, your collective IQ drops, and you
yeah.
look at it. The thousands of people responding underneath, and they're saying, "Yeah, oh wow, this is hard." English. I'm not the expert of this nuclear reactor either, so I wanted to fact check. Not because of these videos. I knew that this. I'm not that
Yeah.
stupid that I think, but I just wanted to know what is this because it was in the news last week or so. I looked it up. What is it all about? And as a layperson, I want to understand. I don't want to go into the a whole structure of nuclear reactor or whatever, and then realize, okay, it's just another reactor, which is far more advanced and is far more greener and more efficient, renewable energy. That's all it is, and it's not going to be in effect until 2040 probably. So just going to give you clean energy. It's not the literal. They just gave an analogy. They analogized it with the sun because it was as hot as the surface of the sun.
Yeah.
That's the analogy they used. But these idiots took it as a literal thing and coupled with a video, a fake edited Photoshop video, and sun's going up, and they say, "Oh, sun's rising from the west." So our channels with millions of subscribers, and they're popular doing this. So this is,
Our
yeah, as you
our
said, this is horrible. Yeah, and anyone can have a say now. Guardian or New York Times, Washington Post, they would not have written this 50 years ago or 30 years ago. They would not have
yeah.
said anything like that.
So this is like the internet and the ability to communicate to millions of people from your drawing room is a weapon. And earlier, this weapon used to be in the hands of those who were trained to use it. And now everyone has a sword and is running around like a headless chicken and not wondering what is happening to everyone around them.
Yeah.
But our common friend Pranav Radhakrishnan actually did a video on the Indian equivalent of what you just described, Hakika TV. It was a guy called Praveen Mohan.
All
Monmohan
right.
in the chat has pointed out. So he's like, ISRO. You have made a video about this. ISRO sends a spaceship out. It
Oh
perhaps
yeah.
reaches the orbit of Mars or lands on the moon or whatever, and
Yeah.
he finds out that the spaceship, the, the module is shaped like a shivling. So this must be ancient technology for some reason. And Praveed made a very good video on it, and
I'm
his
a
channel
massive
got a
fan of.
copyright strike.
I spoke with him and I got him on, and I think it's so. This is why when I see that, yeah, so when I saw you again, like you can understand our skepticism as well. So when we look at
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
even
yeah.
some smarter people from India, I look at it, I'm like, is he going to be another Hindu atheist, or is he going to smuggle his ancient Vedic mathematics or science, and we invented MRI machines or something? Is he going to do this? And yeah, it was science is up. There you go.
He's in
So
the chat.
yeah, he's wonderful. I watched a couple of his videos and I was like, oh, we need more of these guys. But like, but then why are you guys? Why don't you guys have a million subscribers? I get it that people like to hear these kind of things. People like to hear things that make them feel good about their culture. And correct me if I'm wrong. And this is my experience in Pakistan. There's an obsession with Islam. And obviously, the secondary thing is nationalism, and any third world country would have nationalistic problems. But at the first and foremost is Islam. There's no compromise in that. They even say that with by their own admission that we are Muslims first and then we're Pakistanis. Like, okay, all right, whatever. And what kind of a Muslim are you? We're Arabs. Everyone wants to be that. It's pathetic. Even though they put Rajput in front of the name, Jat and all of these, which is
So caste
purely
is a
Indian.
universal thing across
It,
subcontinent.
it is, but no, my point is, it is, but they still deny that. They still
Yeah.
feel that calling yourself an Indian is an embarrassment. It's a slur. They use that as a slur sometimes. Not
Hmm.
everyone. I think it's probably changing with time. But I get that. But in India, what I've seen, obviously nationalism, again, the same problem, and Modi ji has captivated that very well. And, the rise of Modi ji shows that the
Yeah.
nationalism can be used. And everyone use it. Every authoritarian government with your promise of utopia, they've always done it. Imran Khan appeals to nationalism. We get that. But this cultural baggage is very, very unique. We have a 10,000-year-old civilization. Every time I look at it, the number gets revised and goes deeper and deeper. I
Oh,
don't know
yeah,
what they're trying to.
definitely.
I don't know
I
what they're
know
trying to
someone.
prove to them.
I know someone. I actually, sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I actually talked with someone on WhatsApp and he said it's 10,000 years old, maybe 30,000. Who knows? Maybe it could be 80,000. He had no sense of reality. मतलब जब Neanderthals घूम रहे थे, he wanted Hindus around then.
They probably were. Some Neanderthals were Hindus as well. Maybe they collaborated with them and they created this
That's why. Yeah,
MRI
that
machine.
must be it. We are missing the big picture.
Vimana. Yeah, but this Vimana and this ancient architecture videos and all that, and this is what Pranav is so good that they need that. I mean, I don't have that. I mean, I don't have the know-how. Obviously, I don't, and to be honest, I lose interest in that. But obviously, I mean, I have a very simple worldview, and I put that in there. And again, I was actually at my cricket club where I was talking to this Gora guy, and he was an anti-vaxxer, and we got into an argument for 15, 20 minutes of shouting and screaming at each other, and then eventually I kind of got him a little bit on that, which it always goes back to simpler methodologies that we have. And I gave him analogies of, why do you believe in a pilot? You don't know. He basically wanted to say, well, I want to know about the ingredients. I looked it up and I said, there's a benzoyl oxide or whatever. I said, do you know what
Hmm.
that is? I don't know. And neither do you. You don't know it
Yeah.
either. So if you know that, what do you know? What are you arguing about? The polio vaccine that you had when you were a kid. Did you know about that? Do you still know about that? You don't know about any of that. Do you know how many hours the Qantas pilot, how many hours worth of training has he had? We put our faith in that. We put our
Yeah.
faith in experts. These experts are there for a reason. Yes, experts get it wrong too sometimes, but we, as layperson, if I told you how iPhone works, it's going to go over your head. It's going to, I mean, not that I can tell
Yeah.
you, but we put that with our expert. We put a faith that every time we put a phone next to our ear, it doesn't explode in our hand. Remember when it happened with Samsung phones a few years
Yeah. It
ago?
did. It did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we put
The
our
entire
faith.
batch of phones was recalled, I believe.
Yes, it's happened with Toyota cars. It's happened with Hyundai. It happened with BMW. It happened with everyone. But what they do, they go back, they try to make it better. So we
Yeah.
put our we individual. So that's the global system. So why all of a sudden on this particular issue, you think you know more about how vaccines work? How do you don't know that? So I'm spare me my arrogance in telling you that you're an ignorant fool, and
Yeah.
I'm glad that the world is not in your hands.
इसको पक्का कोई क्लिप बनाने वाला है एंड दे आर गोइंग टू क्लेम दैट यू कॉल्ड मी एन इग्नोरेंट फूल लाइक दे आर गोइंग टू क्रॉप आउट दिस पार्ट एंड क्लेम दैट
Well, if you're an
बट
anti-vaxxer, it would make sense.
yeah, totally. I have anti-vaxxers in my own family, so imagine my
Oh, we have
parents.
them everywhere.
Oh yeah,
Um,
okay.
the,
So
the,
but
the and
related
the
to
targets
this,
keep. Yeah, sorry.
no, go on.
No, I was just gonna say, and the target keeps revising. I had one in my family, and he was a massive anti-vaxxer, but he kind of believed that whatever I say makes sense. So he wanted reassurance after some time. He ignored and ignored. He said, "Harris, can you help me? Like my even my employer have told
Hmm.
me that I need to get vaccinated, otherwise I'm not welcome to work." I said, just freaking get the vaccine like the rest of us. Look, I had it 2 months ago. I'm still fine. I'm alive. Nothing wrong. Your sister had it. Your kids had it. Everyone's had it. What do you want to do? Wow, what
Yeah.
evidence do you need? No, I heard this. I heard that. I said, they're all lunatics. So anyway, he got it. He eventually got it. And then he's like, and I asked you, have you died yet?
So, but this actually brings out an interesting point, and I'm sure you have encountered it at some point when you tell people that you trust science and trust scientists, what they say. They might respond with, "What is the difference between having faith in science and having faith in God?" So, how do you respond to that?
Very, very easy because scientists is a complicated discipline, and there's a whole process of peer reviewed, the demonstration, observing, experimentation, and then pasting results, and then any expert can look it up. Any expert. The biggest point is that this is a key distinction, that any expert, if you make a publish a study in America, someone in China who doesn't like Americans, they can test it, peer review it, and they can come with the same conclusion. They can say, this is it, it works. So this system is far better. Now, however, if you look at Islam or religions, okay, this is my theology. All Muslims are like, even by the way, even Muslims don't agree with each other. They have a disagreement. But then when a non-Muslim analyzes it, they say, well, this is all nonsense. So the whole building, this whole architecture of religion is built on shady foundations, whereas science is bulletproof in a sense. Sorry. The science, on the other hand, is the methodology of science is good. Science is not perfect. I mean, scientists can get it wrong. No one is saying that. Yes, one day we discovered this, and then the other day we were like, oh, sorry, there was something left over in the vaccine, but hang on, this is it. So the methodology and the process. So that's why faith in something that is evidence based, which has been analyzed. So that is definitely different than having faith in something, stories that were told 1400 years ago. I guess that what they would say is that, well, you are not the expert, so
Yeah.
you haven't seen the fossils of Darwinism or evolution. You haven't seen it. But again, as I said, I have faith in the process. And everyone does. You have faith in the judicial system, don't you? If you get arrested, I mean, and that's the difference between good. Okay, that's another analogy as well. I would not have faith in Pakistani justice system, but I would have faith in Australian justice system. Why? Because it's been demonstrated. There are opinions on that how people get away with crime and murder and slip through the justice system in
Yeah,
third
yeah,
world countries like Pakistan. But in Australia, if I get arrested tomorrow, I would have faith that if I'm not guilty, I would get justice. Yes, some people can still slip through, but 99%
yeah.
of the time, it's
No,
going to work.
it's a matter of like some people like the thing that I encounter most from religious people from a philosophic point of view is that they have this idea of perfection in their head, and this is something religion has taught them. There's like a black and white
Yeah,
children's storybook that has been taught to them when they were children, where they think that if something works 8 times out of 10, then it is inferior to something that works 10 times out of 10, and the
yeah,
thing that they think works 10 times out of 10 actually doesn't at all.
yeah,
It works
yeah.
0 times out of 10. So it's a complete reversal of things that has been drilled into their heads from a childhood. I remember meeting someone in Quora who said that, why should I trust the human legal system? And I'm like, what are your options, man?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. I was just going to say that.
if you're
Yeah.
standing in a courtroom, can you tell the judge that I do not recognize your legal system? And then what are you going to do? How are you going to solve the problem? And they don't have like it's I'm sure you agree with this. It's often like talking to people who have never gone to school.
I was just going to say that along the same lines that yes, this is religion basically is intellectual laziness.
Yeah.
As you said, that they want easy answers, simple answers. Yes, right and wrong. I want a book, and this is it. And that comes from the assumption that this is divine commandments. So that's why just because you've added an external being who's giving us these commands, therefore it takes a preference over anything else, because humans, we are below them. So it's built on an assumption that is coming from somewhere. So I usually say, so if an alien gave us a good moral structure, would you take it? Aliens are far more advanced than us, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
They would say yes, they probably will, because they're smarter than us. In technological terms, we would know, but morality, this is a journey that everyone has to walk on his own path. There's a proverb in Urdu that says something like, maybe it might be in Hindi as well, कि समझदार आदमी वो है जो अपनी गलतियों से सीखता है, लेकिन जीनियस वो है जो दूसरों की गलतियों से सीखता है. And I said, this is a terrible proverb, because I can tell my child that don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. He would never value it. He would
Mm.
only value it when he experiences it himself. And if you look at it from the day dot, throughout time immemorial, throughout human history, we've been making same mistakes. People fall in love. People fall in love with the wrong person. Your parents will tell you, "Beta, usse shadi na karna, beta, ye wo aise ye." It doesn't happen, but people still make the same mistake and then learn, and then they go to the 30s and 40s, and then the worldview changes. So, on a civilizational scale, no one can tell us that how we're going to run a society. This is a wonderful, and again, it comes from intellectual laziness. If we look at our, especially our last post-Roman world, 2,000-year-old history, we look at it, the journey that we've had, the Dark Ages and the Middle Ages and the Renaissance and all of that, and especially in the Muslim world, we look at it, and Hinduism, you look at the whole rich history of how you were conquered by Muslims, and then the British after. If you look at it, everything. I always say this, and so I get in trouble. I gave this talk in Melbourne, and there was this old person, very senior citizen, and he got angry with me. He's enjoying the talk until I said this. I said, every generation is slightly better than the one before.
Yeah.
And you look at it. If you look at it in the last 2,000 years, you'll know it. I don't buy this argument that, oh, back in our 50s, we could leave our doors open. No, you
There
guys, if you
was
look at the crimes
uh
that we see in the 50s, there were
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the different types of violence, but people have the idea of romanticizing the past. But
The past.
our generation today, even kids younger than us, kids who are going to the university now who are 19, 20, they are far better than you and I in terms of, we're probably caught up with them, but they're the ones who have introduced the idea. For example, when I went to the university, when I was going to the university, we used to make gay jokes.
Yeah.
And then it became normal that no. you don't say someone gay as a pejorative. You don't say, "Oh, you're so gay, man." You don't say that. And now kids today, yes, there's some in high school people say that it's still a bit rough because kids are learning at that point. But in universities, they're totally different level. They won't call you, "Hey, brown," "Hey, Indian." They won't say that. They're far more enlightened than us. And that is the evidence that every successive generation is better than the one before. And because we have walked through this as a civilization, we've walked through this path. And people in 50 years' time, there will be, I always say this, when they look back in 50 years' time, they would say, "Oh, Horace." I mean, not that I'm just using myself as an example. I would be lost in history. But people like they would say, "Oh, Horace was a great guy. Oh, he was a humanitarian, but he was an idiot. He used to torture
Yeah.
animals to eat, to consume himself." Yes, they would also have a luxury of maybe lab grown meat, or they would have some sort of other luxuries which we don't have. I've tried to be a vegan, but they would say that because their morality would have evolved. Religions are dead. They have no role to play anymore.
They're not only are they dead, they've been dead for quite some time. So the most ardent devotees of religions are actually people who are holding on to a dead body, and they don't even realize that it is dead.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a great point. I think wise men learn from the young. I think the greatest.
I
I think
like that.
the greatest thing that is a toxic part of our modern culture or contemporary culture is that we think that wisdom has something to do with age and
Age.
the past, and it doesn't. I think morality itself evolves, right? So people interact with each other. You and I, for example, are meeting for the first time, but if we had known each other for a week, we would know what to say in front of each other and what not to say, what makes you angry, what makes me angry, what to avoid. And that's how moral culture evolves. People talk to each other, they figure, hey, this is not really working out. I say this half the time and you get offended. You say this half the time and I get offended. I can understand why. So let's not do this. And that's how it keeps increasing. That it's like a circle that is expanding to cover more and more people. Once upon a time, like when the American Constitution came into effect, black people and women could not vote,
Yeah.
and now they can because
Mm.
then they were not considered people.
Mm.
And at some point of time in the future, we will all be vegetarians because then morality ka circle will include all animals also.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And
So
also robots as well. Robots will have robots' rights as well
that
because
gets me really excited. Do you
it.
read science fiction? Do you read much science fiction?
I haven't. No, I never read science fiction per se. I mean, I've only got one book, which is on Mars, and I never really ended up. I mean, I think I left the last 50 pages, so I don't know what happened with that novel. But I do watch science fiction. I
Okay.
mean,
What do you watch? What was the last science fiction thing you watched?
Well, other than Marvel and all these ones, I think the last
Hmm.
one that really got me was Mechanica that I watched, and
Mechanica.
yeah, it was an AI thing and fall in love with a woman, and I think there was another very similar. Those movies came back and forth. Her as well. Have you watched Joaquin Phoenix?
Yeah, yeah,
Her
yeah. Her I've seen. I think you're talking
Ex
about her,
Mechanica.
not Ex Mechanica. Yeah,
Yeah,
Ex
Ex
Machina.
Mechanica. Yeah,
Ex
that's
Machina.
Ex Machina. Yeah, that's right.
Ex
Ex Machina.
Machina.
That's right.
Yes.
Yes. So I watched that, and it's a very interesting topic with
Yeah. Yeah.
AI, and it really fascinates a lot of people. That where is it going to go? And I always wonder that if AI keeps on expanding, if they get to emotions and feelings, and I don't know if you've seen some of them where that Facebook created one. There's another ooh kind of thing that Facebook created one, and it became too smart and they shut it down. I
Hmm.
didn't get into reading too much into it, but it's inevitable. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. It's going to happen if whatever legislation you put in the United States, China is not going to hold back. So it's a race to it. Just like
Right.
it's a race to who's going to set up the first colony on Mars.
Oh
It's
yeah,
a race
totally.
to it.
Yeah.
So I think it's very interesting. But I think, again, we'll deal with it when we'll cross the bridge when
Well,
we
we
get
deal
there.
with it. If you are interested, I would recommend one thing that I actually recommend to everyone who comes on this live stream. On Apple TV, there is this series called For All Mankind. It's
Mhm.
based on an alternative history version of what if the space race between USA and Soviet Russia never ended? What if Soviet Russia never went away, and what if the space race continued? And they have like things like mobile technology, etc., happening in the 80s, and humankind reaching Mars in 1995 and stuff like this. It's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
very
I,
cool.
I think I watched this documentary along the same line. There was this Rubin guy. I think he's a president of the Mars Society. Dave Rubin. I think no, not Dave Rubin. I think anyway, something Rubin. His name is, and he's always been trying to. He's been, appeared in U.S. Senate and everything, and he's been trying to convince the U.S. senators to fund NASA so that you can establish a colony and all the
Ah,
'cause, all those scientists talk about. They say that they were growing up when Apollo missions happened in 1960, in the late 1960s, and 1961 I think JFK gave the speech and all that. They say they were thinking that, okay, 1969 we're going to go to moon, 1990 we're going to be setting up we're going to be at Mars, and 2010 we're going to set up colonies on moon and Mars. That would have been the timeline. But then all of a sudden, because Soviet Union disbanded
disappeared.
itself,
Yeah.
disappeared, and that's it. It's over. But now, well, nobody could have actually predicted this. This is another interesting part. Nobody could have predicted this, that the private corporations would be so efficient and big and powerful that they would be able to go there.
Control entire nations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
SpaceX. I mean,
That's true. Yeah.
they've come up with more efficient, better rockets, and they're
And
going
I
to
think
take us to Mars.
SpaceX, the involvement of SpaceX in the space exploration business has actually spurred interest in space again, so
Yeah.
that the funding. So I think if right now a US politician made NASA funding an issue, there might be more interest in it than there was some time ago. We just saw James Webb Space Telescope take off, and I've been posting daily updates about it on my Twitter. Like it's इतने किलोमीटर बाकी हैं, इतने किलोमीटर बाकी है, इतने किलोमीटर बाकी है. So that's it's right now I think around 70,000 kilometers from L2. So that's
Right,
pretty cool.
Lagrange point. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's gone out of government's controls because, as you said, whatever that might be, these private corporations, like for example, Elon Musk, is a genius of bumping up his share prices. So this goes by how many people would buy if some sort of a worldview is presented that, okay, there's so much resource, there's so many resources on Mars, and we're going to be mining them, we're going to be mining asteroids, that's another part of it, and SpaceX is going for it. Would you not want to buy shares? All of a sudden SpaceX could be $1 trillion company purely because of its share prices, because
Yeah.
there's so much wealth in the world.
I have a set of problems with Elon Musk and the kind of, like as you said, he's a genius at pumping up share prices, but we can go into that sometime later. But yeah, the like private corporations, their relationship to technology and how technology gets hijacked for corporate purposes instead of being in the hands of people is an
Oh
entirely
yeah,
different
I think
conversation.
you're talking
But
about,
yeah,
so we've had a very bad experience with social media, so we know Mark
yeah,
Zuckerberg
yeah,
and
yeah,
all that,
yeah.
and I
So
totally get it.
I
And
shudder
this
to
is
think
scary.
I shudder to think that the people who got social media into their hands, if the space race is handed over to them, what might we end up with? So that's a longer conversation. But we are right now at 47 minutes. If anyone has questions for Haris, please leave them in the comments. And right after this break for the Cult Fiction ad, we will get to the questions. I'll just play, like, there's a podcast I have and I promote it in every live stream. So here is that. कल्प फिक्शन में स्वागत है आपका. ये एक अजीब दुनिया है, या शायद ये कहना बेहतर होगा कि ये कई अजीब दुनियाओं का रीमिक्स है. यहाँ राक्षस हैं, पर यहाँ रोबोट भी हैं. यहाँ स्पेस है, पर यहाँ जादू भी है. यहाँ आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस है, पर यहाँ देवता भी हैं. यहाँ वो सब कुछ है जिसकी कल्पना मानवों ने की है, और कुछ ऐसी चीज़ें भी जिनकी कल्पना ना की गई है और ना की जा सकती है. कल्प फिक्शन पर आपको सुनने को मिलेगी ओरिजिनल हिंदी कहानियाँ जो आई हैं दूर भविष्य से और प्राचीन अतीत से, और इन सब कहानियों का वास्ता होगा आपसे, यानी कि आज के इंसान से. एपिसोड्स को सुनने के लिए सब्सक्राइब करें स्पॉटिफाई पर, एप्पल पॉडकास्ट पर या अपने फेवरेट ऑडियो प्लेटफॉर्म पर. Great. So that was it. And let's take the first question. It's from Young Atheist who has thank you to say to Haris, but the question is, what argument should I give to religious people who say morality comes from religion?
Um, because you ask them um, what moral practices you are actually adopting from your religion. I don't know about Hinduism. I think you can probably answer it better than I can. But for example, in us Islamic world, I use a very common one. I said, how do you take sex slavery in Islam? Are we practicing sex slavery? Are we practicing any slavery? Are we endorsing the fact that women should be confined to houses? We are not adopting any of those moral values, and the societies that do take those adopt those values, look where they are in the world. So morality does not come. On the other hand, you can give them tons of other examples where you can say, we've got this, we've only thought about this now. For example, LGBTQ, we've got tolerance towards animals. I know people say in India, in Hinduism, that we've always been kind to animals. We've never had any problem with LGBTQ. But for example, casteism in Hinduism.
Yeah, that's not even true.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't
Like,
go into it. Probably you can answer that better than I can. I mean, I see them; they get caught in the problem. Okay, I can eat chicken, but you react more on on beef per se, but not necessarily on chicken as much.
yeah,
But fair
exactly.
enough, shakahari. There's
Or
still
even
a lot of shak.
fish.
Yeah, okay, okay.
Yeah,
But I get that the shakahari. But for example, in a pluralistic society, yeah, yes, in racism and discrimination, and has very dirty, bloody, brutal history, but in the West now, anyone, you and I being brown people, we can go there. No one is going to racially attack us, or if someone does do it, the whole of their society will stand by us. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
but and again, I'll go to Pakistan again. We make these casual jokes, or kalu, or githu, or kodu. You know,
Same here.
we
Same here.
have these words, and yeah,
Yeah,
we have these words in India as well, and we have these castes. So where is this morality coming from? We don't get our moral values. These values evolve over time. What does Hinduism say about burning coal, for example, or using electricity? What does Hinduism or our ancestors had no freaking idea what the challenges of the modern world would be. What does Hinduism say about how fast you should drive a car in a school zone? Yeah, you would say vague, very vague
yeah,
definition that yes, just look after everyone. Duh, no worries. But that's not all there is. It gets complicated, and that's why I think they realize that this is the reason why people who want to use their cultural to keep their cultures relevant, they come up with these ideas that we were the pinnacle of architecture. We were constructing these buildings. We were constructing these aeroplanes, which are obviously the whole world laughs at them, and then they wonder, oh, this is a Western propaganda. I mean, we're not. I mean, I'm not even a Western white man, but they call us a Western propaganda as
Oh
well.
yeah,
It's just
every day,
like
every day. In fact,
it's a,
yesterday I announced that we are going to have a conversation on my live stream, and there were two comments I got. One was calling me a Western sucker, and the other one was saying, "Have you heard about Advaita?" So I thought ये आ गया मतलब मुझे खींचने के लिए आ गया है ये इसको जिस
Advaita,
बारे में
yeah,
अभी देख रहा था.
yeah.
Please
People
discuss on the
discuss.
religious fanatics attacking good science such as theory of evolution. In my experience, they mostly try to steal it. They try to claim credit for it.
Oh,
Is your experience different,
no.
Harris?
Oh, yeah, very different. I mean, obviously, Hinduism is very different because you've got I don't know, if you've got a million gods, you've probably got 10 million books, and not everyone's read anything, so they take a shlok out and then they twist and turn
Yeah.
it. I used to think Muslims were the most skilled people when it came to twisting and turning their verses, but no, I'm actually I saw this video the other day where this, I don't know if you've heard of it, that some Muslims have been using this argument for a very long time, since the 70s, that embryology has been mentioned in the Quran, and this keeps
Yeah.
more scientists. So I was like, yeah, look, here we go again. The Big Bang mentioned in the Quran. Everything has been mentioned in the Quran. So we've got created, but we take the piss out of that anyway. But I saw this video the other day, and I tweeted about this, where this very serious Indian channel with 1 million subscribers or something, he gave a full slok and something from that book, and he said, embryology, modern embryology, step by step, is written in our 3,000-year-old or 2,000-year-old book, whatever he was. I was like, they're all the same, aren't they? So they're all copy and steal everything. But Muslims, unfortunately, even though they copy, they mention black holes and even dark matter now. There's always a new verse comes out.
Anything like the
Yeah,
galactic core, the black hole at the center of the galaxy, they
yeah,
want everything. They want like
yeah.
it's like a really hungry monster that will eat everything
Devour
without
everything.
without a
Yeah.
dakar.
But this, but with evolution though, that's one thing that just hits them so hard and they don't do it. But by the way, a lot of modern scholars, Islamic scholars, are starting to accept theory of evolution. They're not denying it, so they're not claiming, because there's still slightly smarter ones. So they're not saying that it's written in the Quran, but they're saying that it is compatible with the Quran. Which is obviously the next question is, where does theory of evolution supports that Adam and Eve were created with mud or soil,
Yeah.
with sand? Where does that say? So you can never.
Or
I
even the
mean,
part where like the biblical myth that even Quran subscribes to is that Eve was created from a rib of Adam,
yeah,
when the evidence is that in the womb we are all female and then the mutation happens and some become male.
right. Yeah, so either, but they don't go into that. They say that this is the embryological part, but what they go into is that the first man was Adam. He was created on Friday, just after the Asr prayer, the 4 o'clock prayer. Just after that, Allah created with his hands, and then after that, he got bored, so he created Eve from his rib, which is like, he can do anything. Why can't he just create another one? And then it gets embarrassing for them that why could he not create two pairs? Because Adam and Eve's kids were forced to perform incest. So evolution, unfortunately for these people, is undeniable. There is more evidence for
Yeah,
evolution than there is for the Big Bang.
for anything
Evolution,
else. Yeah.
yeah, evolution is the most accepted and respected theory. Yes, Darwin didn't know a lot of things, so now there's a new debate that started within the scientific community about the random mutation by natural selection,
Hmm.
or non-random mutations, or for environmental factors. So this is a job for scientists to sort it out. We'll listen to it, but no one says that mutations don't happen, and no one says that we have not evolved from the great apes, and species change their shapes and forms over thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years. No one denies that. There's so much evidence for it that anyone who says it, then we have to make fun of them. So okay,
Yeah,
evolution is
exactly.
BS. So tell me, how did Allah create Adam and Eve with soil? We don't need evidence for that. That's a part of faith. So screw you. I'm not
Yeah.
interested in your faith. Come up with a better theory, then I'll accept it.
And another thing about this is like even if you grant them everything that they want, like suppose evolution is bunk, the Big Bang is bunk, all of science is bunk, it still doesn't prove that God exists. Like मतलब
Yeah.
दो डब्बे हैं, एक डब्बे में लड्डू हैं, एक डब्बे में कुछ नहीं है. You want me to believe that the dabba that you're holding has laddus in it. I say, okay, open the dabba and show it to me. You say, okay, you believe that that dabba is khali. Why can't you believe in this dabba? No, the proof for your dabba has to come from your dabba.
Yeah.
Even if you disprove that all other dabbas are empty, it still needs to be opened to see what's in it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
But
uh,
look, I mean, evolution is just, and look. The thing
it's
is,
fact.
it actually makes sense as well. It makes so much sense. I mean, when we look into this quantum physics, I mean, I don't understand it, but and that's the whole problem with quantum mechanics, that it actually defies common sense.
Yeah.
Electron being two places at the same time, and all these part of behaving like a wave and the particle at the same time, or the observer's effect, and all it defies common sense. But this theory of evolution does not defy common sense. It makes so much sense.
Perfect sense.
I have taken my relative, and when they came here, I took them to Melbourne Museum, and Melbourne Museum is not that good. I mean, it's good. I mean, every good museum around the world has a good human evolution section, and I took him there, and I showed him all these hominids step by step, and they put him there, right there, step by step, and I said, "Show me, tell me, what is your explanation for it?" And he was like, yeah, I mean, he couldn't have anything. He's like, yes, it actually makes sense. And then he
Hmm.
was asking, are these real? And then he was trying to defend his faith by going into the conspiracy part of it. Are you sure that these are not fakes? I'm like, yeah, well, they are created. These are samples of that because the whole fossil does not survive. But the experts, it's as good as any scientist will tell you. There's no conspiracy behind that. If you went to China, he would create exactly the same one. If you went to Japan, he would create exactly the same skeletal sample for you. So yeah, people get it, but I think it's the time stamps, the time scales. I think throw people off. They
Yeah.
don't understand. They always ask you, who's the first human, and I've actually I'm going to take this clip out from a YouTube video, which is very good, from a documentary, which, like, if there's three people, three generations in 100 years, and in 1,000 years is going to be 30 generations, and 10,000 years is going to be 300 generations. That's 10,000 years, the last ice age, and the 300 generations. So how long is it going to take? When we go into thousands of generations, that's when slight changes we start observing, start noticing the small changes. So I think people lose track of time scale. That,
And it
okay,
also doesn't help if they come across these time scales and these descriptions after they're adults, because their entire life has gone thinking of the earth as young and these things as simple solutions.
yeah, it's they ask for a simple solution. I actually was thinking about this another one. I was like, okay, next time when someone's going to ask me who was the first human, I'm going to say, who was the first white man? Because if
Hmm.
we all came from a brown Adam and Eve, who was the
Hmm.
first white man? Who was the first
Hmm.
Asian Chinese looking man? Who was the first one? Give me exactly the first one who looks like Xi Jinping. So the parents are brown and the kid was like Xi Jinping.
Chinese.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So who was it?
There are actually creationists who offer explanations for this. Apparently, the Bible has
Yeah.
some stories about after the Tower of Babel fell,
Yeah.
these people went there, these people went there, and these people went there, and that's how all these things happened.
No, that's fine. I no, that's very similar in Islam as well, but not minus the Tower of Babel one. But they would still, I would still ask you, who was the first one? So they went there. Was it like as soon as they went there, the features started changing and the skin started becoming white? When
Hmm.
when was the first one? Oh, it happened gradually. It happened. Okay, my kid is slightly whiter than the parents, and then his kid
Yeah.
is slightly whiter than his parent. And okay, so over 5 generations, we got into Brad Pitt. I always give that example. So we're brown, and then 4 generations later, we've got a blue-eyed, blonde-haired, but Brad Pitt kid coming out.
बेटा
So
तुम्हारे दादाजी इंडिया से आए थे.
yeah, exactly. There's no logical answer for that. So I try to tell them there's no first human. Just get that out of the hand. Some Christian creationists say that I would believe in evolution when a monkey gives birth to a human.
Yeah, I've
That's
heard
not
that.
how it works. So that just
Yeah.
shows you how they don't
Straw man.
understand. They no, then and but they're not purposefully straw manning. They actually don't
Oh
understand.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like this is actually a very good point. I've seen so many people, like, someone learns about logical fallacies, and when they encounter a logical fallacy, they'll say straw man or argument from ignorance or false equivalence. But they don't realize that a lot of people actually don't know that their thinking has become fallacious. Like the
Yeah.
moment something comes out of their mouth, it is automatically logically fallacious. So we should not, like, when we're talking to religious people, we should not assume that they're being dishonest. Often the case is that they haven't been shown the other side, so there is a
Hmm.
case for empathy to be made there. But yeah,
Yeah, but I think we all, because yeah, you're right. I mean,
we're
for example, I
frustrated
was
also.
we do get frustrated. For example, I was talking in my cricket club, yeah. So there was like 30 people there, some older than me, some younger than me, some kids. So this is me, and I'm having this argument with Uncle Lou. We call him Uncle Lou, and he was like, "No, anti-vaccine." He gave me this. Have you heard about this? I forgot what it's called. This global declaration of something, and he said, blah blah blah. I said, okay, let me fact check it, and I fact checked it, and it didn't say what he was claiming. Great Barrington Declaration. He was saying Great Barrington Declaration. 9,000 people have signed that vaccines don't work. I said, I haven't heard of it, but I wouldn't be surprised if there
Yeah,
are, to
yeah,
be
yeah.
honest. So
आजकल
I
तो
looked it up. Then I read it to him. I said, have you actually read it? Because what this says is that these epidemiologists and immunologists and virologists and all these good experts,
Hmm.
my argument is that I trust the experts, they're saying we're not happy with the COVID-19, tackling of the COVID-19 policy. For example, lockdowns, how long the lockdown should be, blah, blah, blah. So no one, they're not signing that vaccines don't work. I said, you threw this big word at me when you haven't even read that. This was
Yeah.
literally in the second paragraph. So we were going back and forth and yelling and screaming at each other. And then I was like, okay, hang on, I can't be like that. So and then we were gathering an audience and we were watching a debate or something. But he was sounding like a total nutbag, total crackpot. So we went slightly into it, and then I think we found common ground, and and he was like, "Okay, yeah, look, that makes sense." Then I'm not saying he's going to go get the vaccine tomorrow, but I'm saying
Yeah, but it's a
that
good first step.
it's a good first step. I gave commonsensical arguments. I always give this. So so initially when they were denying COVID virus, initially when they were denying it, they were saying it's a hoax. So I'm like, what is the government? Because government wants to take away your freedoms, and hence they're putting lockdowns. With the Westerners, there's a weird concept of freedom as
Yeah.
well. I'm like, what is the government unanimously all around the world? What are they going to achieve by putting this little Tom and Dick in lockdowns, killing their own economy? And then on top of that, countries, the welfare countries like Australia and England, they have to give you welfare payments, go into debt. Commonsensically, it just doesn't make any sense. What even Australia rode GFC, the global financial crisis. Australia did not go into recession, but this time they've gone into debt that they say they won't be able to recover until 2040. So what was it? Why would they do this? Okay, so now they believe because now they've seen, everyone has seen COVID-19 death to some extent. And
Hmm.
then now they go, okay, I'm not going to get vaccinated. This is a hoax. So why? Big pharma. It's a money making scheme or whatever. But they're not charging you. The government is paying for it. How does that impact you? And then they go, no, I want to know what's in it. Excuse me, whatever chemical is in there, how do you know? So all of these people keep changing the goalpost. And yeah, I think it's just sad, but there's still some hope left that 91% of the people in Australia have been vaccinated, and I think it's very similar in the UK. I think America is in high 80%. So I think but India, countries like India and Pakistan are poorer countries. So I think India's vaccine rate is very good as well. I think they were saying this is another conspiracy theory.
There
No
was a
way.
like every time we make a phone call, we are told that 100, what was the number? 100 crore, 100 crore vaccines. Yeah, I
So
think.
that's like a billion people nearly.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
but
So
then again, there are problems in the the way they define things also. But that's a
right.
different thing. But yeah, a lot of vaccination has
But people
happened,
are
and
getting
that's important.
vaccinated, so that's a
Yeah,
good thing. People are getting
yeah.
vaccinated. So
The more
guys,
people
please
that
get
get
your jab.
vaccinated, the better for everyone else who also herd immunity
Exactly.
and all that.
Yeah.
But related to this point about why people don't change their mind, there's this question from rationality and philosophy intertwined. क्या लोगों को रिलीजन को छोड़ना इसलिए मुश्किल होता है क्योंकि उन्हें लगता है कि वो डिसलॉयल या रेबेलियस हैं अपनी कम्युनिटी के लिए और वो आइडियोलॉजी बेस्ड कम्युनिटी है?
Well, I think now this applies a lot in your case, or probably in Pakistan case as well. Yes, people have this affinity, this romanticism of ancestors and cultures, and even when Islam was spreading, then the common argument people used to give to Prophet Muhammad was that why should we leave the religion of our ancestors? And my Prophet Muhammad said this is one true religion, blah blah blah. So even now, people feel everything is fine. Everything is in order for a lot of people. I always say that being an atheist requires courage. Being an ex-Muslim requires courage. You're gonna get isolated. You're gonna get alienated. You're gonna get kicked out of the family, even at the pain of death. So many problems gonna happen. So why rock the boat? Yeah, why do you do it? So there is no urge to do it unless you have a curious mind, and
Yeah,
it's very difficult to dumb down your mind in this day and age, because you and I are talking. Even if you accidentally stumble across my video, you would see some point. I've received countless amount of letters where people used to hate me and they say, I used to hate you, curse you. But I changed my mind. But that is not something to be so boastful about, because there are a
yeah,
lot
that's
of
true.
people who just see me one time and then they never see me again.
Yeah,
And they're never going to see me again, because why rock the boat? So people have this affinity. When everything's fine, why change it? So, but it does get problematic when there's another group of people, when people want to change but then they don't change because of the political environments around them. For example, This Pew, I'm sure you would have seen that the detailed Pew survey came out mid last year, about religiosity in India, and I made a whole video, a 40-minute video, and I still had like, I don't know, 10 other slides to go through, and I couldn't do it. Indian Muslims are far less religious than Pakistani Muslims. I was shocked. I think something like 20-25% of Indian Muslims don't even believe in heaven and hell. I'm like, excuse me, what kind of Islam is this? It's one of the central beliefs of Islam, that you
Hmm.
believe in the akhirah, you believe in the heaven and hell, reward and justice and all that. These guys don't believe in it, but why are they holding themselves Muslims? You know why? Because if they feel, for example, Nasiruddin Shah,
Hmm.
these guys don't drop the label of Muslim because they feel that in India we have this Hindutva running rampant, and they're coming after us for whatever reason, and it's all political. They're coming after us. I have to hold on to one particular identity. If I don't hold on to it, then I am lost. For example, in our case, it's easier for us in Pakistan to cause that because, I mean, yes, there is a dogmatic element of it. Don't get me wrong, the ancestral baggage and one true religion,
Yeah.
heaven and hell. There's that, but there's no political pressure which is forcing them to stay Muslim. There would not be such thing, and that's why we're seeing this rise of atheism in all the Muslim countries because their only biggest enemy was their own bias, dogma, and then obviously government persecution. But government persecution never works. But this government persecution, no one is not going to leave Islam because they're worried that Pakistan is going to hang you to death, even though Pakistan doesn't do it. But no one is not. In their mind, they're going to think about it. But if they're being persecuted because they're Muslim and there's a dominant group in their country, then they're not even going to think about it. It becomes your job a lot harder. I think that's the problem in India, though.
Hmm. I think a similar thing happens to Hindus also. Like we were talking
It,
about Hindu atheism some time ago, and you yourself mentioned that sometimes people hold on to the label of Hindu atheist simply because they don't want to let go of the emotional attachment that they have to their childhood religion. I myself, this might surprise you, I myself used to be a BJP supporter, proper right winger, and I
well, you were a
myself
right
for a
winger.
number of, yeah, yeah, totally. I was a Modi supporter.
No,
In
that's okay
fact,
because a lot of Modi supporters. I mean, I was an Imran Khan supporter, but I was never a right winger.
yeah,
but
I
but
was a
Imran
right
Khan
winger.
fooled us. But Imran Khan fooled us.
Hmm. But yeah, so for a number of years, I used to watch the Atheist Experience with Matt Dillahunty and everyone, and I used to find the arguments he makes against uh,
Christian God.
Christianity and Islam, etc., quite amusing to watch. And it never occurred to me for those many years that I could apply all this to my own religion because I used to think, "नहीं, हम लोग वैसे नहीं हैं, हम लोग अलग हैं." मतलब the kind of Tonis that call you right now, I kind of sort of used to be in that category.
Yeah.
And then one day I decided to try, and I found that there is no difference. It's the same brand of irrationality propelled by the same behavioral forces that takes everyone down the same road. And these are tribes fighting each other.
I always say that. I mean, for example, in my case as well, Richard Dawkins had a huge influence on my life, and countless hours of lectures and videos, and then Sam Harrison Hitchens, and then his
Hmm.
books. It had but they barely spoke about Islam. I applied the same logic
Yeah,
on Islam, Muhammad's flying donkey, and the sex slavery and all. Even though they didn't have that, they were pointing those parts in the Old Testament. But I applied that later on in my case, and the universal arguments of who's God, why did He create the universe, what is the evidence for His existence. Looked at those arguments. They apply everywhere. They apply on Vishnu as well. They apply
yeah,
on Krishna and your favorite Hindu god as well. I
yeah,
may not know what are the teachings of Krishna or Vishnu or Ram or Lakshmana. I may not know the specific, but at the end of the day, the criterion is very simple. If it's not supported by evidence, I'm not interested. And especially
exactly.
the more outrageous it is, the less believable it's going to be.
Hmm. Right. So there is another question by Panisha, which is kind of the same thing, but Zohaib has asked something about what motivates Harris to continue his activism after he knows the truth that life is the most valuable thing. So why risk it if survival is the most important goal for us as humans?
Yeah, look, it's something that I question sometimes, and I'm
I wanted to ask you this also. Do you ever feel like, fuck it, I'm not going to do this anymore?
I'm not there at this point, and I think I've said this before that there
Okay.
might come a moment in my life when I might say, "Yeah, fuck it, I don't want to do it. I can do whatever. I'm just going to chill in some Caribbean beach, sip some margaritas and cocktails, and just have fun." I mean, I'm in a position where I could afford to do that, but I would get bored of that. I think I would. So when some people say that, they say that as an insult, that you're doing it for fame, you're doing this for money. Well, money is not really the thing, because I mean, I can live pretty well for the rest of my life without working a day in my life. But the fame part that they say is, I don't like to use the word fame part. I like to use the word legacy. I am a sucker for legacy in a sense that it does motivate me, that I want to do something important. Yes, I could do buy some shares and keep buying them, and like that's fine. There's no legacy in that. I worked in IT for 10 years in the corporate world. That was nothing. I mean, yeah, I paid my mortgages. I bought two houses. I built two houses. I did all of that, but it was meaningless. But the amount of joy that I get, I shared
Yeah.
this letter the other day. This
I
Indian
saw it. I
Muslim
saw it.
YouTuber, I
Yeah.
shared that. How on earth am I going to get that feeling that I changed this guy's life, and not just any guy's life? He was writing a response to my book for 2 months, and then he changed his view. And when he's going to come out
Yeah. So
with
so
all
hold
his
on.
80,000
So
subscribers? Yeah.
for all the audience members who don't know about this, I would just like to explain what Haris is talking about. There was this person who used to be a believing Mormon, obviously, and he was writing a response to a book written by Haris about God and religion. And while writing his response to Haris's book, he realized that he did not have good arguments, and he changed his he left his religion. That's what
Not only
Haris is
that,
talking about.
yeah, but not only that, because I've had over 1,000 messages like that. But the worst, or why called it the most satisfying moment to date, as far as love letters are concerned, he has 80,000 subscribers on YouTube. He had a bigger reach than me. S- some of his most popular videos have had over 1 million views, and he was brother Zaganai kind of a person. He was showing the signs in the Quran. So he was showing
Medical
those
doctor.
videos. Yeah, the medical doctor. He was showing those. He was creating those videos. The big rip. The Quran predicted the big rip. What's going to happen apparently in 100 trillion years? But the Quran wrote that as one of the signs of the
Hmm.
Judgment Day. So that kind of a person. Now imagine when he does come out. I told him, I said, don't delete your YouTube channel. Because when you're gonna come out with, he had a big beard and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he's gonna shave it, he's gonna say, I'm an atheist. And guys, whatever I told you was all bullshit. There is no God. I said, so that kind of a feeling and emotion, I think, it's quite cool. So that's what motivates me. When I started this in 2017, I said this so many times, when Ayaz Azami was arrested in Pakistan for his atheism, and then a week later, Mashal Khan was brutally lynched by a mob. I said, "This is it. I can't do it." I had been an atheist for nearly 10 years, never said anything to anyone, minded my own business. Went to Pakistan a couple of times. Yeah, whatever. Nobody cared. Nothing. Yeah, that's how Muslims want us to behave. That's how every Muslim now tells me, if you've left Islam, just don't talk about it. Yeah, we're not going to say anything to you. That's what they
Hmm.
say now. But that's how I was. But what did they do to those ex-Muslims? And then I had this epiphany that this guy Ayaz Azam is probably just like me. Now I know he's a bit, supposedly he's a bit older than me, but I don't know. Apparently they got the wrong guy. Um, but besides the point, Mashal Khan younger than me, lynched by a mob for asking why did God not create two pairs of humans, so he would have avoided incest. And he got lynched by a mob when his mother held his hand when the dead body was brought. His mother said that when I grabbed my son's hand, every bone in his hand was broken. And so I said, this is it. So I started. I didn't show my face for the first 6, 7 months. I created a Facebook page, and then I thought, okay, it's getting there. And then again, every step that I've taken I've been provoked by Muslims to do it. They said, "Oh, this is some Hindu
Oh
agent.
yeah,
This is some Hindu agent."
that's actually a very interesting thing. They will shout at you and expect you to go away, and they don't realize that that actually causes more things to happen instead of less.
I,
Like
I'll, it's a
everyone who tries to stop people by terrorizing them only makes them angry.
No, but this is even funnier. Let me tell you something. So I started this because of this. If Pakistan government hadn't cracked down, or the Mashal Khan incident had happened in 2017, Pakistani Mullah Harif Sultan would probably might never have existed at that moment. And then okay,
Hmm.
so I'm doing it anonymously, creating the Facebook page, creating videos without showing my face. And they're like, this is I'm Hindu agent, even though my accent is Pakistani in my Urdu accent. So anyway, so they're saying, yeah, Hindu agent, show your face, show your face. I said, screw you, I'll show you my face. And then I ended up showing my face. And then I'm doing these videos for about a year. I'm not finding a lot of success. I'm finding some success, but not a lot. And then this Molvi, this cleric, challenges me for a debate. So I set up this StreamYard and I'm like, okay, let's just talk. He doesn't turn up. He said, oh, we didn't decide this. We decided that you're going to do this on my channel. It was a blah, blah, blah. So go back and forth. So I said, screw this. Now I've created this. A lot of people were anticipating this debate. What am I going to do? So I started taking calls. I started sharing the link in the chat box. And I was like, okay, this is a nice format. I can talk to people, random
Yeah.
people. I can talk to them.
Yeah.
So that's when I started going secular. And then I formulated that on English. So, when I go online every week, I don't know what people are going to ask me. And then Ghalib Kamal obviously came after that, and then he obviously he's very smart as well. So we open ourselves. Does Zakir Naik do this? Does he does he have balls
Exactly.
enough to have this kind
Exactly.
of conversation? No. One guy stands way over there. He's intimidated. He's
And
terrified.
he
You,
panics. He panics like
of
anything.
course.
He panics when, like, there was this. I think you showed the clip, or I think I saw it on AP. But there was this boy who said, "No, what you're describing used to be true 100 years ago. Nowadays, evolution is thought of in
Yeah, he
different
was
terms,
in the
etc."
yeah.
And he panicked. He kind of started
He
accusing him
stormed
of things.
off.
Yeah,
He
stormed off.
stormed off. But the problem is, but that guy was not standing on equal footing.
Yeah.
I'm not the expert of evolution. I can slap him around with facts on evolution that he doesn't even know about, or probably he's not interested in that. But what
How
he's
is he a
done, so
medical doctor? I wonder.
the medical no, yeah, but medical doctor doesn't require. I can't help myself. But the medical doctor doesn't require any. See, doctors, we have this, and this is another cultural problem that we have. You and I, or India and Pakistan, we put doctors way up there.
Yeah.
Doctors are just, if you look in the West, you go to hospitals or something, a doctor is a doctor just like any other profession. Yes, it requires, because a human life is put in their hands, so their training is a little bit more rigorous than, let's just say, you know ambulance workers, they get 2 years training as well, the paramedics. So because it's human life anymore, but they're not researchers. The real doctor is the one who does a PhD, does research, spends time, puts a lab coat on, and then does research. So those are the ones. So again, so a doctor tells you, "Oh, my doctor told me, don't get the vaccine." No, your doctor doesn't know shit. Your doctor is not a virologist or immunologist. He's not the epidemiologist. He's not.
Yeah.
So that's the problem. I think people have. So everything I ended up doing, it ended up happening because Muslims provoked me to do it.
Right. So I'm going to inflict something on you that I think I have brought upon myself. There was this boy called Fuzel who leaves laughter emojis whenever I talk about atheism because he thinks that's a response. So I asked him to come to this live stream and he appears to be enjoying himself. And yet
Sure.
he has given a comment which goes, Islam never denies evolution. It denies the origin of life that Darwinian cult propose. Oh God.
This is how
What?
stupid it is. This is how stupid you are, Fazail. And I saw the comment where he was saying, watch Harris and Daniel Akikachu. Guys,
Daniel
please
Hakikachu,
look
yeah.
up. Guys, please, everyone who's watching, go and watch Harris versus Daniel Hakikachu. And any problems you may have had, any doubts you may have had, you might have thought that Harris and people like Harris and Ghalib, people like these Islamophobes who talk crap about Islam, you would hear that from Daniel Hakikachu's mouth. So please go and watch that. Any misconceptions you may have had over Islam, you would get that from the horse's mouth. That's the saying. But secondly, this guy is saying Islam never denies evolution. First of all, it does. Show me which part of Quranic verse. Post it, copy and paste it. Yeah, Fazel, you know about Islam. Show me a Quranic verse that shows evolution. And secondly, also show me a scientific paper that says humans were created from soil. First of all. Secondly, you're saying that Islam denies the origin of life. Oh, right, origin of life. Darwinian theory of evolution does not say anything about the origin of life. This is the basic entry level class 6 argument. Theory of evolution says absolutely zero zilch nada about the origin of life. I think by origin of life, because he's a Muslim, he probably means Adam's origin, origin of human beings.
Origin of human beings.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's what he means. But we have plenty of evidence that humans have evolved from apes over millions of years. There's no, again, I will go back to my original argument. I am going to listen to biologists and evolutionary biologists and scientists, not some little boy who believes in flying donkeys and moon was split in two and matti se Allah miyan ne haathon se Adam bana. I'm not going to believe in you. Okay, I
Okay.
think you should do the same.
I actually want to make a point about the kind of language used. So earlier we were talking about how a preacher calls himself a medical doctor, and now we have someone who's advocating religion and calling a scientific way of thinking a cult. So there is a religious person trying to ride on the success of science by claiming that he should be believed because he's a medical doctor, and then religion being used, a religious word being used to demean science. So even religious people are agreed on the order of things, that science is above and religion is below, right? Otherwise डार्विन के प्रपोज थियरी को कल्ट नहीं बोलते तुम, या जाकिर नायक अपने आप को मेडिकल डॉक्टर बोल के रेस्पेक्ट हासिल करने की कोशिश नहीं कर रहा होता।
Mm,
इवन रिलीजियस पीपल नो कि ऑर्डर क्या है, साइंस ऊपर है और रिलीजन नीचे है, एंड
yeah,
इवन इट शोज इन योर ओन लैंग्वेज।
yeah.
सो
It's
थैंक यू फॉर दैट फुजैल।
it's again, the only reason that these guys have to deny evolution is because they have to defend this book. They have to defend this indefensible book, the book that says sun orbits the earth, the book that says God has put mountains from atop and nail them into the earth to keep the balance of the earth. Salt and fresh water don't mix. Embryology, and it talks about gender of the baby is determined way after inception. All of the flesh is created first, and then bones are created. Oh, sorry, bones are created, and then flesh. I spoke with this embryologist, real embryologist. I said, is this a I knew this is a copy and paste of Galen. I sent him this. I said, is this the correct order of a baby forming? A Gura scientist who that doesn't know anything about science, about Quran, or he doesn't know if it's in the Quran or anything. He doesn't know who I am. When I was researching my book, I asked him, I said, is that how it happens? Are these the necessary steps? Is there blood clot? There's no blood clot in zygote. There's no point when first bones are formed and then Allah wraps them with flesh. He said bones, flesh, all of these things are happening simultaneously.
Simultaneously, yeah.
This all of it. So he gave me a detailed answer on that. He said this. Then I asked, "Am I missing something? Would this be a correct order?" He said, "No. This is like who wrote it? Some child wrote it." So these are the absolute nonsensical things written in the Quran. The only reason this guy wants to defend it because his surname is Khan and first name is Fazail, and he's been told that this book is the best book in the
Yeah,
world. By the way, guys, do watch that Daniel Hakikachu debate, please.
yeah. Right. So Mir Jalal asks, Haris, I hope I'm not keeping you. Do you have a time
No,
limit
no,
at which
no,
you
no, no.
want to
Keep
end
going,
it?
sir. I'm enjoying this.
Okay. So Mir Jalal says, please discuss how can a secular slash rationalist alliance be built? There is a crucial need for such platforms where people are talking about these things honestly instead of pandering.
Yeah, me. I know me. He's a very smart guy.
Is he
Uh,
from your channel? Is
no,
he someone who came from your channel?
he watches my channel a bit. I think he's a
Okay.
Muslim. He's a
Okay.
believing Muslim, but I don't know if he still is or not. But I think he probably looks into the political views. Um, and as I said earlier, that I think we need to see at the end of the day whether you use the title Hindu atheist, agnostic atheist, even you use Muslim. I don't care about that. What matters
Hmm.
is, unfortunately, especially Islam takes the most of the blame for this. That Islam is a very political religion. When you make Islam a big part of your life, and we can see secular country like Turkey is now trying to put Islamic banking system minus interest, and look what's happening. But countries like Pakistan that are built in the name of Islam, look where it's headed. Uh, 74 years later, the government has now said that every girl at school must wear a dupatta, and every boy, this part I like, every boy has to wear the skull cap. You know, the one that Zakir Naik wears? I'm like, oh, finally, at last, boys are going to pay the prices. Well, guess what? Those very boys who say, yes, girls have to be shameful, they need to take. Now they're like upset about this. It's like, no, well done. But the point is, 74 years later, Islam encroaches on every little freedom that you have. My co-host, Nuria Khan, she says that Islam basically just sucks joy out of your life. Oh, every religion does to some point. Yes, you got Holi and Diwali. They're
We
fun.
have
Yeah, I
right
get it.
now an issue in India happening where a few schoolgirls wanting to wear the hijab are not being allowed into their classrooms in Karnataka, and they're saying that it is our right to wear whatever we want, and the school is not allowing it. So it I guess it's a power equation thing. Who is wanting to oppress who in what situation? So in Pakistan, the thing that is being imposed is the hijab, and in India, what is being imposed is
With the lack of
we
it.
hate hijab, therefore you will not wear it.
Yeah, and I think again because it's a difficult one to answer. To be honest, I mean, as far as adults are concerned, I think government should stay out of people's clothing
Yeah,
business.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
pretty clear on that. If you want to wear a hijab, go for it. If you want to wear a bikini, no one should
Go
be
for
able to
it.
tell you. No one should be able to tell you, hey, cover up. But the problem
Mm,
is, either side doesn't want to listen. Either side doesn't want to give anyone any freedom. So
mm.
Islam, that's what I said, takes the cake for encroaching on people's freedom. So you're saying secular and rationalist alliance we've built. I mean, we can only hope. The early question we asked, what motivates you? I think those little successes that we get. Yes, like Hakikat TV and what the other one that you said your Hakikat equivalent of in India,
Praveen
Pramaiv.
Praveen something,
Yeah,
Praveen something. I don't even want to take his name so that people don't find his channel, but Praveen
don't
something.
worry. I think he doesn't need your our small audience. We're way too small.
Yeah,
But
800 सब्सक्राइबर वाला उसको पब्लिसिटी देने से डर रहा है.
yeah, but it's not going to happen. Don't worry about it. So those guys who's selling crap, who's literally selling crap, and that also shows the IQ of our society. That our 1.1 million guy was talking about that um, Chinese sun fake video, and he was like, "Ooh, the end of the time." And then for my education, I looked up. I found a channel of 40 or 50,000 subscribers, some Gora guy's channel, some British guy's channel, and he explained me the whole process. I'm like, man, these guys are so much better. Like even the tiny YouTuber is not trying to sensationalize. Yes, there are some crackpots there as well, anti-vaxxers and all that. But look at the level: 1.1 million people, as you said earlier initially, that anyone can have a voice, and it has shown us, this social media and YouTube, and
Yeah,
this has shown us there's a huge demand and hunger for populist ideas at a non-governmental level. Yes, Hitler's and all these world people of the world, they appeal to certain populist ideas, but again it's very limited to certain groups of people, like political parties and left wing versus right wing media. But now you guys can decide today that I am going to glorify the ancient past of Bharat Mata. Keep doing it for next 2 years. You might have 1 million subscribers.
yeah.
That's the sad state we live in. So
Pandering to the lowest common denominator.
yeah, but doesn't that say that our civilization has more idiots to be fooled? I think
Yeah,
that's what
that's
it
true.
says.
That's true.
And
I personally
secular,
think that as
yeah.
far as the secular rationalist alliance is concerned, don't expect things to happen from top down. Like that's a religious way of looking at things. Like ऊपर से कोई आएगा बड़ा सा ग्रुप बनाएगा हम सब उसमें शामिल हो जाएंगे. I think any big secular rationalist alliance will be made up of a lot of smaller things. Haris ka channel, Ghalib ka channel, science
Your
journey, मेरा चैनल जो भी है ये सब मिल के automatically they make a bigger whole like dust comes together to create a rock right we are all made of cells.
I think I don't think that jute can survive much longer. I mean, if you look at the whole of human history, yes, there are lots of ups and downs, but collectively we have moved forward. We have moved forward. Where we are today, we weren't there 100 years ago or any other time in human history. We were not there. We're going to keep moving. And I think maybe this is a part and parcel of the game as well. But that, like there will always be some people who would appeal, who would want to live in some fantasy world. Because these people who live in this fantasy world, this is another remarkable coincidence. The people who live in this fantasy world, people who believe in flying donkeys and flying monkeys, they still tend to go on and live their normal lives. You know, when they
Hmm.
go to work, if the car breaks down, that they're not going to pray to the flying monkey or donkey to come and help them. They're not going to do that. They're going to call the mechanic, or they're going to push the car out of the way. That's what they're going to do. So this is probably the reason why religions manage to live for that long. But I think it's getting harder and harder as we go in the modern world. AI is going to come. The way we have sex is going to change.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
The way
already
we
started.
create families. And this is the argument that I made with Hakikachu. Maybe this guy probably
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
understand it back then. The way we create families is going to change. What are you going to do then? And they didn't have the answer for it. It's like, oh, we'll deal with it then. Um, how come the government might be taking responsibility that we're going to take care? Because let's just say 2070, I'm a 35-year-old man. The biggest, the payback from the government is to make a man commit is the pleasure of sex. Yeah, if there was
Hmm.
no pleasure, जितने हमारे 20-20 के लड़के होते हैं, like उनको they want to get married. Why? मैंने ये काम करना. I wanna, at that time they're not thinking about, I'm gonna have to create bill, I'm gonna have to pay bills, I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
pay for the university fees, and I'm gonna be stuck with this woman. I might not even enjoy having sex with. They know he's not thinking at that point, but he's a 20-year-old guy, 20 साल की लड़की. Yes, party time, नाचेंगे गाएंगे और करेंगे. But now, fast forward 2070, you're a 25-year-old man. You just finished your university degree, you've got a good job. Now you can on your computer, probably you wouldn't even need the mouse back in that time. You would just imagine, and the electrodes would be attached to your head. And you would imagine your dream girl, or if you're a girl, then you'd imagine your dream guy, and then it would create a blueprint, and then you press the send button. It would go to the robot manufacturer, and
It builds one.
a week later, they created a week later, knocks on your door, and like, hey, I'm here. Do you want to go out? Do you want to have fun? you know, and she doesn't argue with you, or he doesn't argue with you. I'm gonna keep it feminist
Yeah,
friendly.
yeah.
So he's not gonna bug you. He's not gonna annoy you. He's definitely never gonna hit you. He's never gonna throw tantrums at you. So as a woman, why would you want to do it? You would not want to do it. Yes, there is an element of mamta. Like women have this tendency, and even men to some point, that they want to create a family. But the fact, and this is what Hakikat, you made a good point. That was a good point. It's not his point. I mean, everyone has known it. The fertility rates all around the world have been going down because we prefer better lifestyles. Then we prefer creating huge families. One very big reason was not just religion that we were creating big families. One very big reason we were creating big families was because a lot of them were dying. If
Yeah.
infant mortality was so
Yeah,
high,
yeah,
that was
yeah,
the
yeah.
reason a lot of people were dying. So now we don't have these problems. So why would we want to create babies? So to keep, and who says we even need to create a certain threshold of a human population? These arguments are way too beyond Hakikachu. Hey, Faisal, Fuzail.
Who's
Fuzail, he didn't have any answers. I put these answers to him. Maybe you don't understand English. Go and watch it. So these arguments, what is the ideal population size? We don't know that. And the robots are going to take away our jobs. Do we need to have 9 billion people? No, maybe we can create a better environment for 5 billion people. And
Hmm.
people who have died, they've died. And we don't need to create new humans, because I am 40 years old and I'm going to stay 40 years old because medical sciences have gone. So these are new challenges. Religion is dead. None of
Yeah.
these religions have anything to say on that.
Like a
I think
lot
I'm
of
kind of.
answers that people think are
Yeah.
eternal and always useful answers are answers to questions that were specific to a time period
Yeah.
when these religions came into being or these books were written. People were doing their best. Okay? People are doing their best, but they're outdated. Those answers don't matter anymore. And the bigger problem is not even that religion is wrong. The bigger problem is that it is outdated. It is not
Yeah.
relevant anymore.
I've always said it, that maybe in those times it served some sort of a purpose. Muhammad was brutal warlord,
Maybe.
but
Yeah.
so were all the people around him as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Worse people, more brutal people after him, like Genghis Khan came. So that's fine, but it is outdated. That worldview just cannot survive. every if you become Muhammad, you get Taliban or ISIS. You try to modify it, you become Pakistan, you become a confused country. You don't know what are we going to do. Should we put hijabs on girls, or we let them not wear it? Should we allow
Hmm.
music, or we should not allow music? How do we? If we allow music, then they say that this is the rising cause of, and there's a lot of sexual depravity in our cultures, especially in Pakistan. There's a lot of sexual depravity that stems from sexual frustration. As a result, 82%, this is a survey that I've shared so many times, 82%. So all the rape victims who went to the hospitals, not every rape victim in Pakistan, but all the rape victims, I think it was in Karachi and Faisalabad and Lahore, all the rape victims, when they were interviewed, that who raped you, 82% of the perpetrators out of those girls were the fathers, brothers, uncles, puppers, and all these guys. Even nana dadas as well. Sexual
Okay,
depravity
that's
because
I haven't heard of
because
this.
they yeah, because they live in a sexually frustrated society. This is why I say, even if brothels were allowed, that would be okay. Go get. First of all, don't make sex as a bad thing. Sex is not a bad thing. Just like you want to go and eat food,
Yeah,
you want to do that. It's a biological activity. Don't make it. By the way, your prophet loved it. He had so much of it. He had 13 wives and countless amount of sex slaves he had. He loved it. Why don't you? Why? And this is a problem. I think I blame India, Hinduism for this. Then in Pakistan, we had this very sexually conservative society. Islam is, but in Pakistan, we created this, despite Islam allowing multiple wives. In Pakistan, there's no culture of multiple wives. Now they're trying to popularize it, but it's stupid. Muhammad didn't know you can't have four wives. There are not that many women. You know, it
uh-huh.
will create a
And
hierarchy
back
as
then,
well.
to like the sex ratio issue and the population issue may have made things complicated back then also,
Yeah,
because
it's always been
there
50
aren't enough
50.
women. Huh.
Yeah, it's always been 50-50. But it's always, people have only recorded history for the richer people. People who could
Exactly.
afford multiple wives. What about the ordinary guy? They didn't have they're just not that many women. So first of all, de stop defaming sex. Sex is not a bad thing. Secondly, make it a sexually fluid society. And thirdly, even brothels should be legal. That's my worldview. Because if you don't allow it, what did they say? The oldest profession in the world is
As long as
prostitution.
nobody's consent is violated.
Exactly. If
Yeah.
it's consensual. No, but countries like Australia and New Zealand, and when I went to Europe and I asked a lot of people, and people were like, ooh, in England, for example, in England, there were a lot of illegal brothels. You know why? Because legally, brothels are actually not allowed. So, sexual exploitation of women,
Yeah.
women being smuggled in, trafficked from Eastern European countries, smaller, younger girls, blah, blah, blah. All of this is happening. Countries like Australia, prostitution is legal. And go look at any survey you want. Every sex worker in Australia, she would say, I do it with my own free will, whatever mental issue she might have had, but they make good money. And they're like, yep, no one is coercing me, and everyone's free to make the choices. And guess who goes there? All the men. I see a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
parked. I see a lot of
In fact, I
parked
remember
taxis.
somebody came on your live stream some time ago and said that I'm a boy. When I have sex, my friends say that I have done something great and they pat my back. And when a girl my age does the same
She's a
thing, they
slut.
call her
Yeah,
she's a slut. They're
yeah,
slut shaming.
yeah.
But moving on to a question that's kind of related to uh, relevance of religion. Shraddha Pawar says, can one argue that characters in mythology books are illustrations or artists' renditions and not actual human gods? I think that is the case.
Yeah, but where did it go from? It's just an artist's imagination to let's create a temple, let's start making demands, let's start asking him that he wants this and that, and he in turn wants this from me, karva chauth, this fasting and
Yeah.
har chadana, garlands and all that.
So
Where does it go there?
the short answer to that is human beings are very bad at telling the difference between fact and fiction. Like all religions are fiction, they're
we
stories, but
we are
we
doomed.
made them up, and then we forgot that we made them up, and then we ended up here. This
We are
is like
doomed.
someone going to Comic Con cosplaying as Batman and then thinking that he's actually Batman and jumping off a roof.
Oh, his son believes my father was a real Batman.
His son dresses up like Robin.
Yeah.
Uh, Avirbhav actually, hold on, I need to highlight this comment. कहाँ गया? अरे कहाँ गया? Yeah, so this is just an ad by Avirbhav for their own YouTube channel. He's a friend of mine. He tells horror stories and he says there is no God, but there are ghosts.
Okay, that explains why there are ghosts. Yeah, there's no God.
Right. So this was
You
a
know that.
good conversation. We have a lot of comments left actually. Hold on. How much time do we have? 1 hour 45 minutes. Let's do this for 15 more minutes.
Sure.
Cool. So Avirbhav says you go to Mathura Museum and you will see that Dashavatar statues do not have Krishna prior to 9th century. What does that tell you? Indeed. Indeed, Avirbhav, indeed. What does that tell you? I
Well,
think Science Journey did a great live stream about
mm,
this, and they were talking about how even Devdutt Patnaik has written about this. I have done a video based on Devdutt Patnaik's writings on Epified, which suggests that a lot of so-called ancient temples are actually based on Buddhist architecture.
so you, being an ex-Hindu, buys into this because Science Journey talks about this, and they call him he's a Buddhist apologist. He says,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't give a damn about Buddha and anything. He said, but because this is the case, I can't. For example, when we, for example, say that a lot of Islam is built on the back of Christianity because the idea is already popular amongst Muslims, so they don't call us. But that's like if we did say that, then if the idea wasn't very popular amongst Muslims, they would have said, Haris, you're a Christian apologist because you're giving the credit to Christianity. You're not actually giving the credit to Buddhism. You're actually basically saying, you're calling the fact. Look, to be honest, I mean, I don't have the know-how to say it, but some of the arguments that Science Journey puts forward are quite interesting. For example,
yeah.
we
They
put
are.
we put this argument against Islam. Yeah, what is the oldest text we've got? Birmingham manuscript, which was written around the time of the Prophet, and it's a very small chapter left, but whatever. Okay, is there, and the text is different. Whatever. At least there's some sort of physical evidence there. We can put it back to the 7th century Quran. Yeah, we can say that before 7th century there's no Quran. So at least the idea, the timeline of Islam 632 AD, that timeline adds up. Okay, but with your ancient Vedas texts, I think the oldest Hindu text that is found in a form of book or something, is it 11th century or something like 10th century or something?
Yeah, so I think
Yes, there are
Science
some.
Journey's argument actually holds a lot of water because Hindus have this cop out where they say that just because we don't have a written text from that period does not mean that things didn't exist. We had an oral tradition, and that oral tradition tends to be a cop out because it allows you to claim that 80,000 साल पहले, 4 लाख साल पहले, 5 करोड़ साल मतलब पृथ्वी के बनने से पहले स्पेस में हिंदू तैर रहे थे। कभी-कभी तो उनकी बातें सुन के ऐसा लगता है।
So basically, they're saying that we were building these ancient, remarkable buildings, MRI machines, flying Vimana, but we didn't. We hadn't invented paper yet. So,
But yeah,
yeah. I had a very funny call. One guy, like, so I was talking about evolution. I don't know how the conversation ended up there, but he was Arias Maji, I think. But then he said Hinduism is 2 billion years old. 2 billion. He said pre-dinosaurs. Dinosaurs came after Hinduism.
was this a
And
genuine person? Like he actually
he was
believes
a
this, or was
yeah,
some
yeah. I
mazak
think
कर
if
रहा था?
you no. I think if you search Pakistani mulhid Hinduism, do Arab sal purani hai. I think you'll find that call. I was like, what do I do with him now? I got nothing.
I think one of the reasons behind this is that Hindus, because of the cosmology about billions of years and millions of 30,000 years, whatever, they become very comfortable with large numbers, and this comfort is not found in religions which are Abrahamic because they tend to have a shorter time span in the cosmology. So Hindus figure, oh yeah, they're small thinking people. We will think large, and then they go wild. Large, matlab large. Everything, everything is billions of years old.
I just share the screen. I mean, anyone who wants to go and watch this, you can just click this. This is if you put
Right.
Hinduism and humans are 2 billion years old, and I'll show
The
you.
first video here.
Yeah, this is a gentleman here, Ajay Kumar, I think. So
Okay.
it's a
I shall
while
check
ago.
this
It's
out.
two
Even
years
I
old.
haven't seen this.
52,000 people have seen it. So yeah, what do you do? What do you? This is the way we run into it. And this is what I say that once you open yourself up for irrational belief, then anything is possible. Then flying donkey is fine. Muhammad's flying donkey is fine. Moon was split into two and everyone was sleeping. That's why nobody recorded it. This is how some of them
Everyone was
justify
sleeping
it.
all over the world, regardless, including places where the moon was not in the sky.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Power of Islam says science keeps on changing. Judging perfectly preserved Quran on basis of science is a childish thing.
yeah. Well, here's something, power of Islam, you
Science
need to
doesn't
understand.
change; it improves. Go
Yes.
on, go
Oh,
on.
I was just gonna say this is a very interesting part. So the two parts that, again, these, how these mullahs and these pseudo intellectuals, the new age pseudo intellectuals in Pakistan and Muslim community, they fool these people. They give you an example. Or back in the day, they used to say, universe is made of ether, and now we know universe, there's no such thing as ether, and universe is expanding. Blah blah blah. What they don't understand is that for example, the idea of ether is goes as far back as the ancient Greeks. What you don't understand, there was a philosophy of nature, which was, Greeks were big of that. And then there's a thing called modern science, which actually starts from post Galileo era. What Galileo changed, he created the telescope, and he made observation the key part of that. So you can't use common sense. You observe something, you put it down, and it gets tested. That is the fundamentals of modern science, and it changed from Galileo onwards. So from that point onwards, I challenge you, you will not find anything that was just put up there and that was totally discarded. No, nothing is discarded. So what happens, whatever science discovers, it's a subtext of something bigger. So
Hmm.
what that means is, like, you have a smaller writing, and then there's going to be a bigger heading coming, and then after that another bigger heading will come after that, and then another bigger heading will come. So that is the improvement. As Vimoh said, the science is all about discovering further. For example, we discovered, okay, first step is we've discovered earth is round. Okay, earth is round. Now we're going to discover, how round is it, what is the circumference, what is the diameter of the earth. Now we're going to discover that, okay, the earth has magnetic field. Now we're going to discover, like,
Exactly.
how far away it is from the sun. So that is how science works. So you saying that science keeps on changing, uh, it doesn't change like that, it improves. And secondly, changing is actually a good thing. In my first chapter of my book, The Art of Thinking, I actually said, why do people think that changing of mind is a bad thing? The biggest plus point that Muslims used to sell was that Quran is unaltered word of God. And guess what? Up until the 20th century, this was a good plus point. But now it has become the biggest gale ki haddi, whatever the English would be. Like, it's become a biggest thorn in their eye, because they're stuck with fresh water and salt water
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
mix. They're stuck with sun and the moon's orbit that
And they're
causes day
bending
and
over
night.
backwards to try to make it fit somehow. And
So they
this is what
can't
Hindus
change the.
also have to go through when it comes to mostly caste.
Yeah,
Somehow.
but Hindus didn't emphasize on the preservation of the Quran, but Muslims did. So for 1400 years, they said it's the unaltered word. We're not going to change even the spellings of the word, even though there are different types of the Quran. That's another thing as well. This guy probably doesn't know it, but that has been, so what they can, so they can't change the Arabic, but what they can do is they can change the translation, and hence we have, from Zakir Naik to Ahmad Didat to Javed Ramdi to Madudi, we have so many of these people. They all come up with different interpretations of the Quran, but at the end of the day, you're stuck. Sun and the moon, mountains have been nailed down from the top. Mountains grow from underneath. Mountains don't
Hmm.
come from the top. Mountains grow from
From
earth.
underneath. Yeah.
Yeah. Fresh water. There's so many embryology fault. That's why Quran. If Quran was actually changing, if you guys had actually changed it, let's say in the early 90, this standard Quran is 1932. It is more or less the same Quran. But if you had been changing it, like like for example Christians, you might have saved yourself some embarrassment, but now you guys are embarrassed because of this stupidity.
I think one of the problems that Hindus run into is that even though some of them, like, they would try to put their feet on two boats at the same time. So, on one hand, they will say that our religion has no compulsions, it's all fluid, and these texts are, uh, they're timeless, but you can also choose to not believe in them. But in modern times, what is happening is that a lot of Hindus, if you talk to them about their religion, you will find that their conversation is indistinguishable from the kind of Muslim that you described,
Yeah.
because they are also bending over backwards in order to prove that there was a united Hindu identity, that there was a there was a linear flow to the uh, uh, to the flow of Indian history, and Hindus, modern Hindus, had an important part to play in it. The RSS says that all Indians are Hindu by blood, and even that is false because there is so much genetic diversity in India. So this focus on one religion, one nation, one language, even in some cases, it has begun to afflict India in modern times.
It's
But
why is the desire to do that? I mean, I understand
yeah,
that in to
fear
you
of
think that,
diversity.
but aren't we learning that, especially a country like India, for example, forget about multicultural, which is superimposed by the Western countries, like inviting other countries, other cultures, and the United States is not just white only. Forget about it. Let's just say countries like Australia, which are much younger and smaller. They've invited Indians and Chinese, and now you see all kinds of colors and people in countries like Australia. There's no slavery. There was never any slavery, so that's why we don't have a big African population. They've superimposed that. But in a country like India, it is natural. How many languages you've got? How many people who look different? People from South Indians look far different than people from Punjab, from both sides of India and Pakistan look. We're more similar than the other. So don't you think that, don't they think that this is actually a suicide? Let me give you a very quick, brief lesson from history. Bangladesh, Pakistan tried that, even though much smaller country, less diverse as India. They said, you know what, Bangladesh, we're going to superimpose Urdu language on you. They're like, excuse me? We
Yeah.
attack their identity, which is harmless. Keep them Bengali. You want to use this in Bangladesh, you want to wear your whatever clothes you want to wear, just keep it. I don't care. Why do you want to unite people under freaking Shalwar Kameez and Urdu language? So look what happened. There was a lot of people were upset, and as a result, India exploited it. That happened. So why would you want to do? And I see the seven sister states. They're totally different. You look at them, you're like, oh, hang on, are these guys Indians? Let them be. They're part of India. Let them be. This is the diversity people should be proud of. Why impose this heavily North Indian cultural worldview on everyone else? That is a recipe for disaster.
Hmm. Bangladesh, which is why I keep telling people that if a central powerful government imposes a language on people, it will end up in civil war, which is like the India ka North versus South fight over Hindi imposition is very old. And every couple of years, North Indian, like, mostly BJP, and occasionally there is even a Congress voice that supports it, ki Hindi should be national language. It's a pot boiler. They keep it boiling so that it can be milked during elections. Like they will say Hindi should be national language. Someone from the south will say no, it shouldn't, and then they will say, look, they hate India. Or someone in the south, a politician who wants to rise to power quickly, said, look, the North Indians are coming to take away our language from us. So they keep it's a dangerous game to like.
I
But
think
anyway, I want to take up maybe the last couple of comments. The first one is from Taranga, who's a very, very old friend. And as far as my online life is concerned, don't a lot of Hindu atheists use the label precisely because they are communal as hell? Othering of those born in minority religions, including atheists, retains their own power socially, politically. Yeah, they do. And I think the Hindu atheist movement, so to speak, in modern times is powered by mostly upper caste Hindus who leave India and go live in Western countries. And then when Westerners look at them, they see, oh, an Indian, a brown person. They don't realize the other intricacies of identity that go on. So the upper caste way of life becomes, in the eyes of the Western person, the Indian definition. And that's where all this comes from. They want to appropriate atheism because it's cool, apparently. Matlab, the number of Sanghis on Twitter who have Richard Dawkins as their display picture is not small. There are a lot of them.
I
What
see.
they like Richard Dawkins because Richard Dawkins provides them with ammunition to use against Muslims in India.
And
So
Christians.
Hindu
Yeah.
atheist is a label that is used by a lot of people for precisely this.
Yeah, yeah. I think
Do you
you
have anything
probably
to add on this?
no, not really. I
Because
think
I
you've
took up too
used it
much time.
well. No, 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 no. That's fine. I think you
Great.
added.
So We have a lot of comments, but I will take just one more. Let me go through these. Mostly लोग एक दूसरे से लड़ रहे हैं, झगड़ रहे हैं. Uh, yeah, and confirm Jannati. Fuzel says yes, we have tons of evidence that Adam was made of clay. Quran. Fuzel का एक और चाहिए क्या?
Yeah, okay. Let's just end it on a
Let's
funny
just end
note.
with Fuzel.
Funny
Uh,
note. Is it Fazel or Fazul?
Fu- Quran is not a science book. Why should it talk about evolution?
Well, Quran is a science book. Quran does make scientific claims. Quran says that Allah has created a sky like a roof over your head with invisible pillars. So this is the ancient world that there's a roof over our head and it's being held up by pillars. And Quran just adds to the fact that the invisible pillars. Quran gives you the scientific makes a scientific claim that Allah created earth and heavens in 6 days. First, Allah created heaven. Allah created earth, and this is no exaggeration. I've actually people can come to my channel, and I've made tons of videos on these, and I can bring them up with screenshots and references. Allah created earth, and then He got busy with the sky and put stars at shining little lamps. These are scientific claims. Allah says how mountains form. Allah says how what's the behavior of fresh and salt water. Allah says he whatever He wants to do, He says let it be, and it becomes. And then in the other places, He says I need 6 days. Sorry guys, I'm a bit tired. I need 6 days to create earth and heavens. So
It
there
does
are
make science claims. Yeah,
yeah, it does make scientific claims. So it is a science book. If
it
if
wants
it
to be a
had
science
this
book.
yeah, yeah, it was providing answers. The only problem yours is, Fazal Khan, the only problem you have is that these are wrong scientific claims. That's why, since you can't alter science, so what you say is that what we are saying is not science. No, you are saying well, what you are making. You're making scientific claims, and so why do you people talk about the Big Bang? Oh, the Earth and heaven was split together. I was just reading up the other day. There's another Pangru, no, not Pangru, Pangra. There's a Japanese ancient myth that uses exactly the same verse. Pangra actually separated heaven and earth. Yes, we have the story of Geb and Nut, the ancient Egyptian and Sumerians. They all say heaven and earth were separated. Heaven and earth were separated. Literally tens of these myths. And this is exactly what Quran borrowed from all the
Yeah,
other
I
ones.
think a
It's
lot
a
of people
common
don't
view.
realize that a lot of these myths that they think are unique to their religion are actually not. For example, I found that like Hindus have this idea of the four ages, right? Apparently, not Irish, Irish mythology has the same idea. Four ages. The first one was the best. The second one was a little worse. The third one was a little worse, and the fourth one, which we are in right now, is the worst of all. Ireland of all places has the same story
I
as.
It's funny that you mentioned. I actually saw a Hindu comment, and he was the Sanat, the Tuni was telling me, "You don't know anything about it." He said, "It's the four ages are Big Bang's ages. It's early inflation,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then they're expanding the universe, and now in the third one, and there's a fourth one is going to go into it's like."
No, but they see the best thing to say to them is that when you're talking about the first age, the defining quality is perfect moral order, right? Where was moral order when neutrons were combining to form atoms or
Okay,
whatever?
I don't
That
know
was
these
not a
details,
scientific. Yeah,
but but I'm just simply saying that these four stages that scientists have categorized now for the Big Bang, and they're just four. I think Muslims haven't caught up on that. 4 days, the further breakdown of verses as well. The 4 days and then 2 days. So 4 days were at the outer space, and then last 2 days were spent on Earth. So again, there's a contradiction. First, Earth comes, and then the stars come. So it's all a mess. So sorry, Fuzail Khan, your book is
it's yeah.
horribly scientific. It tries to be a scientific book. Horrible, horrible, very stupid book. Looks like written by an uneducated fool from the 7th century. If you more than welcome to read it with tafasis, with exegesis or the commentaries from the experts. All you have to do is read the Quran, and you'll become an atheist.
Right. So before I go, I'll just end with this comment, which encapsulates my view also. Haha, you speak so well. Thanks for inviting and introducing us to such a riveting person,
Oh,
says Taranga. Thank
that's
you.
just
Thank
too
you,
kind, Taranga. You're
Taranga, for
too
that
kind.
comment. And thank you, Haris, for being here. I know it was short notice. I asked you a couple of days ago, but thank you so much for making time for this.
I
And
am so happy. I'm more very very. I'm pleased that you invited me. We're trying to do the same thing, and I'd like you to come to the show as well, because I think a lot of
anytime.
our audience and I think we should do that with Science is Dope as well. I think because I did a little interview with him, like, because my format of my show is like 2 hours, but I think I need a dedicated interview of you, pretty much along the same lines. Because I know you talk a lot about the atheistic principles, which is pretty much what we talk about as well. But if we can just specify that from the Hindu perspective, I think this is what is going, because because we have a lot of Hindus who follow
Yeah,
us.
yeah, yeah. I know.
Not necessarily, yes, we're not necessarily sure. Even though I get messages from time to time that I used to be a Tunni and now become an ex-Hindu atheist, so we're trying to popularize that term there as well. We apparently that upsets a lot of people as well. That okay, why are you following in the footpaths of ex-Muslims? Are you like copying something? Which is just a coincidence. I don't care what you call yourself as long as you
Hmm.
don't believe in anything, because ex-Muslims were unique. Like the Western atheists, like these Dawkins's extensions of these guys, they never call themselves ex-Christians or whatever. It's kind of like when America invented internet, they went with .com because they had the naming rights. So they went with .com. So Western atheists they had the luxury of calling themselves just atheists. It's
Yeah,
like a
yeah,
name.
yeah,
They didn't have
yeah.
to call themselves ex-Christian atheists.
And in any
But
case,
we
they don't take into consideration the social reality of other places when they're making their own decisions.
Well, look, which is fair enough. Again, they're doing this is a
Yeah,
that was a
it's their
Western
platform.
movement.
So
It was a Western movement. It came out of a Western whatever. It was all the circumstances were Western. So that's one. So then out of that came Mariam Namazi, and out of that came a lot of Muslims who also bought into the same argument. They called themselves ex-Muslim. That was a new caveat that they added, a nuance they added, and it's like, okay, now so I don't care. So maybe when we came here, they said, "Yeah, we're one of you guys, but we are Hindu atheists." No,
yeah.
we don't want to take it. There's no
So
such
yeah,
thing
so
as
let me know
Hindu
whenever.
atheist.
Let me know
Sure.
whenever is a day and time of your choice, and I'll come.
Yeah,
And
let's
I
do it next
actually
week.
like the thing that I usually encounter with people like this is that the question I get, "What are your qualifications?" And I tell them that I've written a 10-issue comic book series, which is a retelling of the Ramayana. I have run a YouTube channel called Epified for 2 years, which was about Hindu mythology. So it's not like I'm coming out from scratch. I have considered these things. Like I'm sure you also get it. तुम्हें क्या पता है? तुमने क्या पढ़ा है?
No,
And
no,
it
I don't
turns
need to
out the
say
people
that.
who ask this have themselves not read anything.
No, Vimoh, but yeah, it's irrelevant. Like when you say something that makes sense, I do believe a lot of people would listen. I mean, people are listening to you. I listened to you. You impressed me straight away, and I was like, why? Because you're making
Thank
sense.
you.
I didn't look into. Hang on, is he an MD? Has he done PhD in something? It's irrelevant. You don't need to do PhD in Harry Potter to know it's a work of fiction. It's bullshit. You don't need a PhD in that.
That's
Besides,
true.
don't compare science, which is a serious discipline. Yes, if I was talking about, if I was making revolutionary claims about evolution, which goes against the hierarchy of status quo, then you can ask me, hey, who are you? Why are you? Where's your peer review paper? Then yes, but I don't need a PhD to work out that donkeys don't fly or monkeys don't breathe, and then universe comes into existence. Or Brahma's case, or monkeys don't fly with the whole Earth in their hands. We know that. We don't need a PhD in that. So
Yeah.
not interested in that. Anyway,
So great. It was nice having you
thank
here,
you, sir.
Harris. And we shall end this now. Thank you for everyone. Thank you to everyone who joined in the comments, including Fuzel, because I think that deserves special mention. And everyone who's the regular, everyone who came over from Harris's channel, please subscribe and hit the bell icon if you don't mind. I could use some help with this channel. We are not yet at 1,000 subscribers.
You'll
But
get
I
there.
hope to see you all around. And Harris, hope to see you on your channel pretty soon.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Great. Everyone, I'll see you on What day is it? Yeah, I'll see you on Saturday at 10 p.m. when we have another guest that you will like very much. Until then, bye bye.
Bye bye.